Over the last 30 years, Marvel Legends have given us hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Spider-Man related characters. And it's not enough. So with that in mind, I'm David, you're watching Displaying Model Behavior, and these are 100 Spider-Man characters that still need Marvel Legends. In Marvel Comics, the Man-Spider is a terrifying involuntary mutation where Peter Parker loses his humanity and transforms into a feral, multi-armed, or giant spider hybrid. Unlike in the 90s animated series version, the comic storylines usually involve a mystical, radioactive, or mutant-driven body horror kind of element. The first time we witnessed this was in the Savage Land mutation in Marvel Fanfare issue number 2 from 1984. In this story, Spider-Man and Angel from the X-Men are captured by the mutates of the Savage Land, and Brainchild uses a machine to devolve Spider-Man into a multi-armed, beastly man-spider, enslaving him to his will. Now, Peter maintains some human consciousness, but he can feel his humanity slipping away. He's eventually rescued, though, and reverted to human form by Kazar and Kyle Lykos, who drains the radiation from his body, returning him to normal. I'm a man-spider! So many times, Peter Parker has mutated into a hideous man-spider creature. If he had a nickel every time that happened, he'd probably have about 4 nickels, which doesn't sound like a lot, but you'd be surprised it's happened that many times. And every time it looks wicked. I'm not asking for much. I'm just asking for a gigantic deluxe man-spider creature with all the arms and the claws and the tendrils and the 8 eyes and the ripped up Spider-Man costume. I mean, heck, if I had 5 minutes spare, I'd do it myself. But it would look like complete rubbish. So Hasbro, if you could do it, that would be great. I think the most popular version of this character is, of course, straight from the 1994 animated show, which did get a pretty cool figure from Toy Biz, which actually kind of stands the test of time. They went so hard with the sculpting and a nice bit of paintwork and even a cheeky little diorama base. That dude still looks the business. Articulation isn't there so much, but hey, for what it was at the time, very impressive. So you know what I'm doing right here? I'm throwing the gauntlet down, Hasbro. You know what? I don't think you can do better than Toy Biz. I think you're afraid. Yeah, that's right. I'm calling you a chicken. What are you going to do about it, huh? Give us a new man-spider? I'd like to see that. Rath the Wretched. This character debuted in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 7, issue number 13, by Joe Kelly and Pepe Larraz. She's a native of the planet Kylo and a member of the Wretched, the lowest caste of her society. The relationship is described as a light-hearted, non-exclusive fling, with Rath providing unwavering support and a fresh perspective to Peter, distinct from his Earth-based romances. Rath has displayed her own independence, stating that she loves Peter, but she is not necessarily in love with him. While she appreciates their connection, she doesn't feel the pressures of a traditional relationship. Rath the Wretched sounds totally like a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring boss, but it's not. She is Spider-Man's main squeeze, or at least she was until recently. Maybe it was only a short-term flirtation, but hey, left little impact on me. I have no idea why. I mean, she's just like a 6'8", jacked up green alien muscle lady. I guess the character was well written. That's what it was. I don't know how their relationship ends or if it does, but I assume that it does because Spider-Man is currently, having adventures on Earth and I don't think she features in it, which is a shame. I grew up with Spider-Man and Mary Jane being the, forever couple, but also I appreciate having them not together means you can have more interesting relationship dynamics. And this would just be a fun character to have. Being a big, tall, jacked up green lady, you could argue, oh, it just kind of looks like She-Hulk. Well, yes and no, because she's got a lot more details going on with the face, with, the different colored patterns, a little horn kind of structure as well. Like, it's cool. It's a little bit more unique. Then with the gear that she wears, I think this would be really fun to have. Plus, if you wanted to, you could build out the rest of Spidey's intergalactic teammates. Especially, you could throw in the little symbiote character with her as well as a little pack-in. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I really like that idea. And I sincerely hope, fingers crossed, that she hasn't been forever written out of the comics, because I really like the relationship that she has with Peter, because as her name implies, she's from this caste of characters who are considered like wretched and unworthy. And Peter's like, no, like, look at you, look at your worth. And it was a really nice story arc, Peter kind of showing her what she is. So yeah, with everything that the writers did with that character, I'd like to see her in Marvel Legends form. Before we go any further, I'd like to take a quick pause for the cause and just say if you're enjoying this video, then a thumbs up would be hugely appreciated. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, well, that would be awesome if you did. And if you like model behavior, then make sure you check out my other channel, Model Behavior News, where each and every day, whenever possible, I give you a brand new news video of all the goings on occurring in the toy industry, from reveals, releases, pre-order info, and all points in between. All the links are in the description down below. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. The Technorachnid. This is a living techno-organic suit which bonded to Peter Parker during his intergalactic travels in the 2025 Amazing Spider-Man comic run by Joe Kelly and Pepe Larraz. Initially appearing as an advanced space-ready armor, it was later revealed to be a sentient technarch named Glitch. The Technorachnid suit debuted in the landmark 975th legacy issue of Amazing Spider-Man, which by that volume was at number 11. The true nature of the suit as the character Glitch was fully revealed in Amazing Spider-Man 15. Although this is a fan favorite design, the suit is set to be retired when Peter returns to Earth for the Death Spiral event. Now, I don't want to do too many alternate costumes or just Spider-Verse type characters, because there's bajillions of them. It would be kind of boring to just say, oh, this costume or that costume. But while I'm here, this costume actually is kind of a cool little design, and it is bang up to date as well. So it's fun to have something that feels kind of hot off the press. And even though it's not the most unusual type of Spider-Man suit, it's got some cool little gimmicks with it. Because the tech suit is kind of a character in and of itself. It's a bit like a mixture between a symbiote and the Phalanx. So like a robo symbiote type thing. It's cool, and it's got like its own separate form and personality that's all kind of like spindly bindly, so you could have him as an accessory. The more I think about it, the more this would actually be a really fun set. And also, in Spider-Man's space adventure, he kind of gets a little group of misfit heroes to tag along with him, one of which is this cute little Symbi character. It's like it's like a cute little symbiote, basically, but it's kind of like a little puppy. Man, I'm so easy to please. It's like, oh, it's cute. I bet you're watching this being like, I bet you like Minions as well, don't you, Dave? I don't hate Minions, but then again, I used to work for Universal Studios, so I'm used to just being surrounded by Minions. But yeah, getting the tech suit Spider-Man with a cute little Symbi on his shoulder. You know what? Symbi would probably go better as an accessory for Green Muscle Girlfriend. Do those two together, that'd be great. Then give us a separate tech suit Spider-Man. Yeah, that'd be wicked. In this next segment, I refer to the character as Hell Knight. That is not correct. Hell Knight is a thing, but it's not the thing that I was talking about. The guy I'm talking about is Hellgate. Always mixing up my knights with my gates. So enjoy this next segment on Hellgate, who I refer to throughout as Hell Knight. Hellgate. Introduced in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 7, Issue Number 1 by Joe Kelly, Pepe Larraz, and John Romita Jr., this Hellgate is a mysterious, physically imposing figure who's hell-bent on Peter Parker's destruction. He hails from the planet Kylo, a world that was once prosperous but fell into darkness after its way of life was sabotaged. He claims that Spider-Man, who he calls the Prince of Steel Silk and Black Cat are part of a prophecy that he intends to enact. His primary goal is to humble Spider-Man by destroying everything he loves. He was first teased in Amazing Spider-Man 65, where he is shown to be responsible for the future deaths of Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen. Now, the reason Peter Parker was up in space in the first place was because of Hell Knight whopping his butt down on Earth. He, full-on Stone Cold Steve Austin, cracked open a can of whoop ass, stomped a mud hole, and walked it dry. And Peter was like, okay, peace, I'm out of here. To be fair to him, he wasn't running away. Hell Knight basically said, yeah, if you stick around here, I'm just gonna murder everyone. So you might wanna beat it, pal. Hit the bricks. And then the next story arc was Spider-Man trying to find a way to enhance his power and his strength so he could come back home and be like, yo, ready for round 2? Bam. That's where we are in the comics now. I'm reading on Marvel Unlimited. I don't know how it turns out for him. I'm excited to find out. In the meantime, though, Hell Knight, I don't think it's the most unusual or creative design. It's basically just Space Roman. But as far as Space Romans go, he looks pretty cool. Following a battle with the resurrected villain Sin Eater, Norman Osborn was cleansed of his sins, leaving him with a deep, albeit forced sense of remorse for his past actions as the Green Goblin. Originally, he tried to atone for these actions by donning the mantle of the Gold Goblin. However, when Peter Parker was trapped in deep space, Osborn took it upon himself to act as New York City's protector, donning his own version of the Spider-Man costume to fight crime as seen in the most recent run of Amazing Spider-Man. So while Peter Parker is up in space licking his wounds, someone has to fill in as Spider-Man, and I can't believe that this is a story we have in 2026, but the new Spider-Man is the benevolent and lovely Norman Osborn. I have to admit, maybe it's a Stockholm Syndrome kind of thing, but I'm sort of starting to be okay with Norman Osborn being a hero-type character. I am very stubborn, but, the writing has not been terrible. And I guess this makes sense. Norman has been purged of all his sins and his evil doing. But I thought the whole point with Norman is that even without the Goblin serum, he's still a dick. When he came back after the Clone Saga, the whole point was he was like this Lex Luthor type character. So I guess when he got purged of his sins, he also just got purged of the more bad parts of his personality? I don't know. Anyway, he became Spider-Man. It wasn't a huge change with the costume, just red eyes and some exterior wrist shooters and ankle bracelets. It was an unusual look, but I want to include him because, hey, I'm doing everything else that's modern and part of this saga, so there you go. You get new Spider-Man as well. This next entry features the character Torment. Unfortunately for my dumb little brain, he has a big old spiral on his face. So guess what I called him? Yeah, Johnny Spiral Face. Nah, it was just Spiral. Never actually twigging in my brain that, Dave, there's already a character called Spiral. That means that this one probably doesn't have that name. No, it's Torment. But enjoy this next segment when I tell you all about Spiral, apparently. Torment. This is a new, highly dangerous Marvel Comics serial killer introduced in early 2026, acting as the primary antagonist in the Amazing Spider-Man / Venom Death Spiral crossover. As of this video, his true human identity remains unrevealed. However, he is obsessed with a psychological concept he calls the Death Spiral, where he targets the distant relatives and future acquaintances of his foes, gradually narrowing the circle to their closest loved ones. He believes that he is helping his victims by forcing them through this mental anguish. His backstory, including what forged him into a killer, and his mysterious connection to Peter Parker, is set to be revealed in Amazing Spider-Man / Venom Death Spiral Body Count, issue number 1, which will be released probably as soon as this video goes live, making it out of date. Great. One of the newest characters to surface in Spider-Man now, we have Spiral, who I haven't even read this character's story yet. I don't know what the deal is. I know that, of course, he's clearly fashioned after a spiral symbiote, and he's fighting Spider-Man, Venom, Carnage, so it's all very oopy-goopy symbiote related. But beyond that, I don't know. He seems to have the Shocker's gauntlets for some reason. Okay, I'm here. I'm with it. I'm not going to include too many symbiote characters because, again, you could do 100 list just off of symbiote variants, and that would get pretty boring after a while. But Spiral, he seems to have got the Roman Reigns push right out of the gate. Brand new character, and boom, you're the big bad in a brand new story. So you know what? I think that warrants an action figure. In a recent storyline which kicked off in Eddie Brock Carnage, after being separated from the Venom symbiote and injured during a time loop event, which was all part of the gigantic Venom War story, Eddie Brock is forced to bond with the Carnage symbiote in order to survive, attempting to control it by allowing it to hunt other serial killers who Eddie deems worthy of being on the wrong end of the wrath and bloodlust of Carnage. A little costume redesign that I really got on board with was Carnage in a suit. It's just a weird, creepy kind of image, and I really dig it. So this is Eddie Brock with the Carnage symbiote. I kind of love that. From what I understand, the deal was Eddie Brock would take on the symbiote and he would find evil people for it to kill, because it was like, hey, I'm going to murder a whole bunch of people whether you like it or not. So, being this weapon, you might want to just point me in the direction you want to go for. But of course, it's Carnage. It's going to double cross him at some point. Again, haven't read the story yet. I really want to. I'm looking forward to it. It looks like a good time. But I know that in Eddie Brock's mind palace, where he's talking with the symbiote, it attires itself in this awesome red suit and fedora. And I'm like, yes, that is an action figure that is totally surplus to requirements. And I really, really want it. In Web of Venom, issue number 1, we discover that the new symbiote host who's been swinging around in a red and blue costume is in fact Boomerang. During a police raid on an illegal lab operated by Tombstone, a jar containing a sentient, trapped symbiote called Passenger broke and allowed it to bond with Boomerang to save him and his partner Overdrive. The Passenger symbiote had been on Earth for 200 years, but had not bonded to a host. It learned about Spider-Man and Venom through the symbiote hive mind. The pair named themselves Comeback, creating a new anti-hero team that works to protect lower-level criminals from harsher, more powerful villains. Boomerang Venom. This is one that is, again, hot off the press, only just been revealed that it's Boomerang. Does that count as a spoiler? I hope not. No, there's loads of stuff out now. No, that's not a spoiler. I'm sticking with that. But it's a big honking chonking Venom character, but with a Spider-Man costume take on it. I kind of like that. It's fun. There's so much stuff I need to catch up on in the comics. I know that the mystery of this guy, his identity, was a secret for a long, long time. There are a whole load of suspects. Boomerang was definitely not at the top of most people's lists, but he has an interesting recent history with Peter Parker. They were former roommates. Of course, Boomerang didn't know who Peter was, and he was kind of portrayed more as not even an anti-hero, but one of those bad guys who's not evil. He's just a criminal. So having him as Venom, yeah, it's kind of an interesting take. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it. And if they do good, then it might just warrant an action figure. Following the events of Venom War, Mary Jane was acting as the hero Jackpot, using a device that channeled randomized powers based on luck. While fighting the ancient mega symbiote Arachnik, the Venom symbiote bonded with MJ to enhance her unstable Jackpot device. However, the device later began to malfunction, threatening to kill her. While in a state of molecular disintegration, Mary Jane was saved by the Venom symbiote, which bonded with her to keep her alive. They fused together and now act as a single entity to ensure their mutual survival. Looking at the Mary Jane Venom design, I was trying to puzzle out to myself, why don't I like this? Why does it look so odd? And then I remembered, I once saw a whole bunch of pictures online of sharks with human teeth. Don't know why someone did that, but it exists. And my brain went, no, that's weird. Sharks have big, sharp, pointy teeth. Human teeth looks odd. That's your Mary Jane Venom right there. They tidied up the mouth so much, but he still has, or it, she, they still have the huge, big, hulking Venom body, but then a more sort of refined face. And I'm like, no, one of these things is not like the other. So even though the design is a little bit odd and the gold change is, well, it's a change for the sake of change, I feel. I'm kind of talking myself out of this now. But the reason I do want to go for it is because MJ Venom has kind of established herself as a thing. I thought it might be a one-off storyline or a little flash in the pan, but it's going on a year or so that she's had the symbiote, and it doesn't look like she's going to lose it anytime soon. So with that in mind, you put her on the list. I think it's only a matter of time until we get this as a Marvel legend. Arachniks. In a twist on traditional origins, Peter Logan was bitten by an escaped irradiated spider, but this reality-specific circumstances combined the abilities of both Spider-Man and Wolverine, resulting in a mutant spider hybrid. The accident resulted in a body that is partially made of sentient organic webbing, granting him a superior healing factor and adamantium claws. Unlike his mainstream counterpart, this Peter Logan lacked a sense of responsibility and used his powers to become a villain. He led the Revengers on his world, a twisted version of the Avengers, and became a massive threat to that reality's Reed Richards. After being apprehended by the 616 Wolverine and Spider-Man, Arachniks escaped and followed them back to the main Marvel universe, hunting them as a new high-stakes threat. I forgot to mention this when filming the video, but he totally reminds me of Itsy Bitsy, and she would be a really cool character too. Vermin. Edward Whalen, often portrayed as a homeless or mentally unstable individual, lived in New York City. He was discovered and captured by Baron Helmut Zemo and geneticist Arnim Zola. Zola subjected Whalen to brutal mutagenic processes, transforming him into a feral, rodent-like creature with superhuman abilities and predatory instincts. Zemo intended to use Vermin as a disposable assassin to kill Captain America. He debuted in Captain America 272, where he was immediately defeated by Cap and later escapes. He would, of course, then go on to be a regular menace for the Amazing Spider-Man. Vermin, a real classic Spider-Man villain, and I'm amazed that we haven't had this dude in action figure form yet, because he's not some crazy, difficult, unusual, bizarre character to make. It's just a furry dude with teeth. And that's all we're asking for. Plus, Marvel Legends. We can army build this guy. For the hardcore people, there is one main character of Vermin, but also there have been storylines where loads of people have been verminized. I think there's an entire city of rat people under New York who are probably bumping into the mole people and the Morlocks, and the subterranean part of New York is pretty jam-packed. But yeah, Vermin especially, he had some real iconic moments in big-time stories like Kraven's Last Hunt. He is a big-time, I was running out of words there, he is a big-time Spider-Man villain, definitely one of the biggest missing pieces from a classic rogues gallery. Carrion. Malcolm McBride was a student at Empire State University and rival to Peter Parker. He discovered a test tube of the Carrion virus in Warren's old lab. Upon exposure, the virus consumed him and transformed him into the second Carrion. This version famously joined Carnage's family during the Maximum Carnage storyline before being temporarily cured by the villain Shriek. Man, Carrion, we have been asking for this dude for the longest time, and I feel like it is inevitable. In fact, I don't even know, by the time this video comes out, maybe we might have even had an announcement. I feel like he's just around the corner, and he needs to be, because Carrion, again, has such a history with Spider-Man, and the biggest part for me, part of Team Carnage in Maximum Carnage. And if that is not the biggest staple of Spider-Man's 1990s, well, I guess the Clone Saga would be, actually. But Maximum Carnage was right before that. In fact, that was kind of like the peak of sort of Spider-Man excess before the Clone Saga came in and just blew everything up. But bottom line is, we need Carrion. And I can't help but feel it's not going to be long until we have him. Swarm. Fritz von Meyer was a German scientist and one of Hitler's top experts in beekeeping and toxicology during the Second World War. After the war, he escaped to the South American jungle to continue his research in isolation. Von Meyer discovered a massive, unique hive of bees that had mutated by radiation from a fallen meteorite, making them highly intelligent and aggressive. Attempting to use a sonic device to control the bees, the plan backfired. The bees attacked and consumed von Meyer, but his consciousness merged with the hive, creating a single collective intelligence. Swarm, this dude, so much fun that Toy Biz did him. We have a Swarm figure from way back in the day, in the mid-90s. Well worth giving another go at because it's such a fun design. You could have him just as all bees with the hood over him, but I'd love it if you had like some of the bees coming away, a bit of skull and skeleton revealed. That would be so cool. It's such a wacky, crazy character. I kind of love him. He doesn't get many big features in the comics, I don't think, because maybe writers are like, what am I going to do with a skeleton covered in bees? I don't know. You're a comic book writer. Figure it out. I want more Swarm representation. Less so in comics, though. More so on my action figure shelf. And kind of like Carrion, I can't help but feel that's one we're going to see pretty soon. Tendril, originally a man named River Veres, an adult arrested for armed robbery who contracted necrotizing fasciitis, a severe flesh-eating bacteria. While in custody, Veres was part of an experiment by GARID, Galen Alternative Research for Immunization Development, led by Dr. Monica Staphos. She attempted to cure him by using a synthetic skin derivative enhanced by an isotope genome accelerator. Peter Parker, who was working at the lab, realized the IgA was similar to the radiation that gave him his powers and accidentally mixed his own blood in with the SSD sample. Dr. Staphos used this tainted sample on Veres, mutating him into the monstrous web-like creature known as Tendril. From the pages of Spider-Man's Final Adventure, Tendril. Man, Spider-Man's Final Adventure. I don't think anyone in 1996 thought that was really going to be the case, except for me, hoping that Ben Reilly was going to stick around. Young Dave, so much disappointment lay before you. But Tendril only appeared in this story, but it's a cool look. Kind of like if Carnage was made out of cobwebs, I guess. But more so, he's not just that. He's got this kind of awesome look with the human skull inside, with the eyes all set back, and then the big spider legs coming out of the back and just covered in webs, and just a gnarly looking monster. And sometimes in this world of Dr. Octopuses and Mysterios and Green Goblins, they're kind of bright and fun and 60s and wacky. Sometimes you want something that's a little more edgy and a little more 90s. And that's exactly what Tendril is. He'd be really fun to add to the collection. The Spot. Dr. Jonathan Owen was a researcher working for the Kingpin. He was tasked with studying and reproducing the teleportation powers of the superhero Cloak. Owen successfully created a black circular portal, but the massive power draw caused a blackout, destabilizing the portal. Driven by curiosity, Owen stepped into the portal and was transported to a bizarre dimension of black and white spots. Upon escaping the dimension, the spots adhered to his skin, covering him from head to toe. Realizing that these spots were portable, interdimensional warps, he adopted the name The Spot and began using them to teleport himself and objects. Probably the most egregious one missing at the moment, it's got to be The Spot. Mainly because it would just be so easy. I'm not saying do the bare minimum possible. I don't have to. But it is just a case of repainting a blank figure. Just white with spots. That's literally it. And I guess he's just one of those back burner figures where they're like, yeah, he's a well-known character. We'll get to him eventually. Well, eventually is now. Congratulations, we've hit it. If any of you guys are waiting to do something eventually, I'm telling you now, whether it's go to the gym, start saving, ask that girl out, eventually is here. Time to do it. And for Marvel Legends, that means making the spot, all right? We're all waiting. The Robot Master. Born in Germany, Mendel Stromm was a sickly child who found solace in his passion for robotics. He eventually moved to the United States, where his genius in engineering and chemistry caught the attention of Norman Osborn. Stromm became a partner at Oscorp, formerly Osborn Industries. While there, he developed a formula for enhanced strength, which would later be refined into the Goblin formula. To steal his research, Osborn framed Stromm for embezzlement, leading to a 10-year prison sentence. Upon his release, a vengeful Stromm attacked Norman with deadly robots, but was stopped by Spider-Man. He seemingly died of a heart attack during the encounter, but survived by transferring his consciousness into a robotic double, officially adopting the Robot Master moniker in later appearances such as Spectacular Spider-Man 68 from 1982. Stromm has also been known as Gaunt, a withered cyborg kept alive by life support technology provided by Norman Osborn. Mendel Stromm, the Robot Master, but more specifically, Gaunt. There's so many different versions of this guy. Me being a huge big Clone Saga fan, of course I want him as he appeared in the end of the Clone Saga, or at the end of the Clone Saga, where he was Norman Osborn's right-hand man. At first we thought, wait, this dude in the survival suit, that's the guy behind the Clone Saga? And then the Clone Saga being the Clone Saga, it was like, oh no, there's a guy behind the guy. Which is funny because Gaunt was already the guy behind the guy. And it's just, oh, the Clone Saga, you gotta love it. It was the Russian dolls of villains. I was like, wait, there's another one. But first of all, we had him in his survival suit. That looked kind of cool. That would be a fun version of the character. But then at the very end of the story, he's in a big old gigantic tank mech suit. Oh, that would be a wicked deluxe figure. Don't think we would ever get it. There's not that many people clamoring for it besides Muggins over here. But man, I'd love to see it. White Suit Dr. Octopus. This fashion statement was made most famous during the Return of the Sinister Six storyline, in which Doc Ock attempts to gain global dominance by using satellites to trigger nuclear waste dumps, forcing the world leaders to bow to his demands. Unlike the original lineup, this team consists of Dr. Octopus, Hobgoblin, Sandman, Mysterio, Electro, and Vulture. In the story, Sandman, seeking redemption, defects to help Spider-Man, making him a pivotal stopping point in Octavius's plans. The storyline is famous for its high-octane action in the early 90s, featuring dramatic battles across different locations, including a climactic confrontation on a remote island base. Of course, what I will always remember it most for is Doc Ock rocking the sharpest white suit you've ever seen. Now, it's very rare that I would have a character on this list that we already have plenty of versions of, but come on, White Suit Dr. Octopus? Yes, please. This was a version of Doc Ock that is so wonderfully 90s. Not in a wacky kind of way, but just this is my Doc Ock. When I got into reading comic books, he wasn't wearing the orange and green. He was in his whistle and flute looking all dapper, and I loved that. Plus, you could have him rocking a pair of Uzis as well, so it could be like the Eric Larson style Dr. Octopus. I would love that. Give him the same kind of sunglasses he wore as well. Give him a stylized Eric Larson sort of face. I think I'm not alone. I think I'm not alone in many of these requests. Some of them I definitely am, but this one would definitely be a crowd pleaser. And once again, I feel like it's inevitable, but he must have been on the back burner for quite a long time. Stunner. Angela Brankel was a lonely, overweight secretary working for Carolyn Traynor, who would of course go on to become the second Dr. Octopus. To test advanced virtual reality technology, Traynor and a disembodied computer consciousness of Otto Octavius, which was known as the Master Programmer, used Angelina as a subject. They created a hard light holographic body known as Stunner that was physically strong, beautiful, and tall. Because she was given this powerful form, Angelina fell deeply in love with Otto Octavius, becoming his devoted lover and bodyguard. And if you're gonna do Dr. Octopus from the 90s, you gotta do Stunner as well. I think this would be a wonderful two-pack. Not advocating for more two-packs, but if you're gonna do them, they would make a great pair. Doc Ock finally found love in the form of Stunner. Geez, I wonder what he sees in her. I can't possibly imagine. This would actually be a really good use for the Grey She-Hulk body or the Titania body. Now that I mention it, that would be a good pick for her. Another jacked up, muscle, badass lady. Got the great looking suit with the spikes on there. A real omission from our Clone Saga themed characters. And since we've got Kane and we've sort of built out more of this era, armored Daredevil as well, Stunner would fit right alongside those. Hopefully with a white suit Doc Ock. Judas Traveler. Dr. Judas Traveler was a world-renowned criminal psychologist and philosopher obsessed with studying the nature of good and evil. Following a severe nervous breakdown, he went into seclusion. This trauma activated his latent mutant powers, causing him to experience hallucinations and adopt a false reality where he believed he was a godlike immortal being. Under this delusion, he formed a group called The Host to study human nature. He was manipulated by a mysterious operative named Scrier, who was in fact working for Norman Osborn, who fed into Traveler's delusions using advanced technology to simulate mystical feats. Judas Traveler. This dude, what a bait and switch. But it was a fun bait and switch while it lasted. But man, the outcome, very disappointing. Initially revealed as a god-level character, until someone in the Spider-Man office went, you know, Spider-Man doesn't tend to really deal with god-level characters. And someone went, yeah, shall we just say that he's nuts? Yeah, we'll say he's nuts. To be fair, the seeds were kind of planted earlier on, maybe kind of unintentionally, because he's revealed as a god-type character, but he's got all these human beings like backing him up and doing sort of tech support for him. And it's like, exactly how, what kind of god needs tech support? But there you go. One who's not really a god, it would seem. But he'd be a cool action figure. All the jewelry, the long flowing coats, just, I don't know, maybe I'm a simple person, but I'd really like a Judas Traveler. The original Scrier is a cosmic-level entity in the Marvel Universe, with immense, often nebulous powers, known for manipulating events behind the scenes and acting as a rival to other high-level cosmic beings. The Silver Surfer awakens Scrier from an eternal slumber in a Himalayan temple. He is described as a being of immense power, acting as the inspiration for the ancient Brotherhood of the Scriers. Scrier is highly manipulative, often working through agents who are unaware they are under his control. And if you got Judas Traveler, you gotta have his main man Scrier next to him as well. Now, Scrier's got a really interesting backstory, or at least interesting to a big nerd like me. I think there is a cosmic being who is Scrier. If we have people who read Silver Surfer or Guardians of the Galaxy, you might be able to help me out with that one. But the Scrier that we are introduced to during the Clone Saga, we think is another cosmic being. But of course, it's just a dude who belongs to the cult of the Scriers. So it's just a white-faced guy in a black robe. Not that exciting, but for big Clone Saga nerds like me, we'd really rather like it. These guys were responsible for helping Norman Osborn, come back from the dead initially and rebuild his empire. So they have some importance in Spider-Man lore. So therefore, they should have some space on your Spider-Man shelf. Rek-Rap. A Denzian of Limbo, he admired Peter Parker and adopted the name Parker Man to fight evil. After being rejected by Chasm for being too heroic, he sought help from a Limbo alchemist who fused a piece of the Venom symbiote with his costume, creating a powerful, demonic Spider-Man doppelganger. He possesses super strength, durability, wall crawling, and organic web shooters. While appearing as a scary, sharp-toothed demon, Rek-Rap is sincere about being a hero, often fighting against Chasm's forces and fighting alongside the real Spider-Man. He is essentially a heroic, demonized symbiote version of Spider-Man who speaks in distorted, enthusiastic versions of Peter Parker's phrases. Wallopin' web snappers. I can't believe I'm actually including this character, but here we are. Due to the popular demand of people who just love to troll me, I suppose, I'm including Rek-Rap, a character that represents the lowest time in Spider-Man comics, for me personally, because this was during the Dark Web storyline, where Ben Reilly, the clone of Peter Parker, becomes the Lord of Limbo, and through all the different random little limbo demons popping up everywhere, we got Rek-Rap, who decided that he was going to be a demon who becomes the heroic Spider-Man, and we get this monstrosity. At least the Marvel Legends team could just get an easy repaint out of their big Monster Venom type body. So there you go. It's an easy action figure to make, and we get a character that I really kind of despise. But also I will accept that a lot of people would probably buy him, because that's just what the world's come to these days, isn't it? On July 3rd, 1957, mob boss Maurice Forelli killed his lieutenant, George Sims, along with 6 other mafia bosses and their lieutenants in Las Vegas to resolve a conflict. These bodies, known as the Vegas 13, were buried together in an isolated part of the Nevada desert. Decades later, an experimental gamma bomb was detonated in that area, mutating and fusing the 13 corpses into a single, massive, sentient gamma mutate entity called Digger. Digger, a real fun D-list type character. Not D-list with regards to powers, but just the fact that he's not a well-known character. Only popped up a few times here and there in the Spider-Man comics as a mob enforcer, but a really fun look to the character, this stitched together gamma zombie is what he is. And he's a great hired goon, bit of muscle to have for any of your gangster type characters. So considering that Hasbro have done a really great job over the last few years of building up our street level crime display, Digger would fit right in, especially because then you could start to model the whole gang war storyline. Because I'm pretty sure that Tombstone has as his 2 enforcers, he's got White Rabbit and Digger, which is a real odd combination that I really kind of love. And considering that we do have a great White Rabbit figure, pairing her up with Digger, that would be super fun. Though now I'm thinking about it, was she actually opposing Digger? That gang war storyline got a little bit messy with lots of different groups of gangsters all trying to take each other out. Now that I think about it, we got Madame Mask as well. She featured heavily in that story. Yeah, when it comes to street level villains, Marvel Legends collectors, we're doing pretty darn well. So with that in mind, Digger would make a really fun addition. The Grim Hunter. As a boy, Vladimir Kravenov underwent a rite of passage where his father, disguised as the Grim Hunter, hunted him to test his survival skills. After his father's death following Kraven's last hunt, a fully grown Vladimir adopted the Grim Hunter name and traveled to New York to hunt down Spider-Man, who he blamed for his father's death. Unlike his father, Vladimir used a mystical jungle serum to gain superhuman strength, speed, stamina, and enhanced senses. He often used high-tech weapons, including electrical gauntlets, dart launchers, and an energy spear. Vladimir's initial crusade failed. After fighting the Scarlet Spider, Vladimir was brutally killed by Cain, a twisted clone of Spider-Man who branded him with the Mark of Cain. During the Grim Hunt storyline, however, his mother Sasha Kravenov used mystical sacrifices to resurrect him. Although, because the sacrifice was imperfect, Vladimir was brought back not as a human, but a large humanoid lion-like creature. The Grim Hunter. Man, when Marvel kills off a character, there becomes a void, and nature abhors a vacuum, so we got the Grim Hunter, the son of Sergei Kravenov, and one who was not long for this earth. It took him all of about two appearances to eventually get iced by Cain, which was just part of Cain's awesome Brock Lesnar push, where the Marvel writers basically lined up as many villains as possible for this guy to just cut through like a hot knife through butter. And Grim Hunter, he was on the chopping block. But actually, he was brought back. He was resurrected as part of the big resurrection story where Kraven the Hunter's wife wanted to bring him back and reunite the whole family. And I can't remember exactly how it worked. They had to sacrifice some spider character to return him to life, but it got all messed up and he ended up coming back as like a giant wolfman type creature. And then when Kraven does get resurrected, he then takes his daughter to the Savage Land where he tells her to hunt her wolfman brother as kind of an initiation sort of thing. And Anna Kravinoff, she's like, weird, but okay. It was a fun little family dynamic they had with the Cravens for a while, which didn't last for long, but I kind of dug it. A family of psycho hunters I thought was pretty awesome. And anyway, even though the Grim Hunter was only around for a short time, I'd still like him for my Clone Saga display. Nightwatch. Over 10 years prior to his series actually starting, the title character, Dr. Kevin Trench, was attacked by the invisible camouflage cadre. He was rescued by a mysterious, heavily armored hero known as Nightwatch. The original Nightwatch was fatally wounded in the fight. As he died, Trench removed the hero's mask and realized that the older man was actually himself from the future. Haunted by this and trying to protect his lover Ashley Qua, Trench took the nanotech battlesuit from his deceased future self to prevent the events from unfolding, inadvertently stepping into the role himself. In an early attempt to use the suit to save Ashley from AIM terrorists, Trench accidentally caused an explosion that killed everyone on board a plane. Distraught, he hid on a remote island, putting the suit into a self-imposed exile. Nightwatch, man, this guy was a real moment in time for the 90s. Not around for a long time, but it was a good time. Pretty much Marvel's version of Spawn, but don't say that, but I mean, come on, the writing's on the wall and the ink is on the page, and this dude does look suspiciously like Todd McFarlane's Spawn. But then again, come on, Spawn takes his origins from all different places, and yeah, everything is a riff on something. So you know what, I'll give Nightwatch a pass in that regard. But he is just a little staple of 90s fun, and I'd kind of like to see him, especially because he does appear for a cup of coffee in Maximum Carnage, which means we need him for a full Maximum Carnage display. If you want to be super thorough, you got to include Nightwatch. And hey, who doesn't want a Marvelized version of Spawn? Exactly, I can't hear anyone. I think it'd be really fun. The Phil Urich Green Goblin. While working as a young reporter, Phil and his Uncle Ben investigate an old abandoned Oscorp hideout of Harry Osborn. During a struggle with thugs, Phil falls into a chamber containing a new experimental version of the Goblin formula. The formula, combined with a modified Green Goblin mask he dons, gives him abilities comparable to the Green Goblin. Unlike his predecessors, Phil chose to use this gear to fight crime as a hero. Operating during the Web of Spider-Man era, he struggles to get the public to trust him due to the legacy of the Goblin name. There are certain rules in life that are inarguable. That is a word. It's not a word. But you can't have too many goblins. That's the one rule that I was trying to get to. I don't care. You can have hobgoblins, green goblins, grey goblins, demo goblins. Doesn't matter. Just give me more goblins. And the Phil Urich goblin, that is one that I'd be gobbling up, given the chance. It was great to have a heroic version of the Green Goblin introduced in the 90s, just to see what you would do with that. And having him be connected to Phil Urich, that was a nice little line of connectivity throughout the Spider family. Plus, it was a cool design or a cool upgrade for the Goblin, taking away the purple vest, having the bare chest and the more ragged kind of clothes, but then the super high-tech gear. I really loved it. It didn't last long. I think we got about 12 issues out of it. And the difficulty for this character as a superhero was that all of his powers were based on tech. And it was tech that he didn't design. So therefore, once it got destroyed in his battle with the Onslaught Sentinels, he was like, well, I guess I'm out of business. His power was kind of organic as well, because he got doused in the Goblin serum, but it only activated when he put on the robotic Goblin mask. So without that, he was just plain old Phil Urich. And then what I kind of liked was that his character then had a total fall from grace and ended up being a villain, because he was like, if I can't be a hero, I'm going to find some way of getting back into this superhero game. And it was a cool little character arc. But this initial appearance as the Green Goblin, yeah, I'd love to get this guy in plastic form. Dr. Ashley Kafka is primarily featured as a psychiatrist in Spider-Man stories. She was originally created by J.M. DeMatteis and artist Stal Buscema, first appearing in Spectacular Spider-Man 178 from July of 1991. Dr. Kafka was murdered by the serial killer Massacre during a breakout attempt in Superior Spider-Man number 4. A second clone of Kafka was later activated by Norman Osborn. This clone was forcibly bonded with the extracted sins of Norman Osborn by the Beyond Corporation, transforming her into the villainous Queen Goblin. The Goblin Queen. I've said before, can't have too many goblins, and this is a perfect example of that. Dr. Ashley Kafka, another character who's had a great long lineage. I don't love the fact that she's now this demonic villain goblin character. I do love that we still see her in the comics. So the former psychiatrist and head of Ravencroft Institute, now a full-on evil, demonic goblin character. And what a cool look as well. Sometimes you see characters and you just want the toyetic value of it, which is why I feel like we probably won't get it, because this would have to be all brand new sculpt, giving us a goblin type lady with all the armor, the jewelry, the accessories. The staff would be really fun as well. I don't think any other goblins have a staff as a weapon. That's a fun little gimmick to have. But then also with the glider as well, you're stacking more and more cost on top of a character who maybe isn't super mainstream. But I would give the argument, all right, that sometimes you don't need to be super mainstream if you just look awesome. That in itself should sell an action figure. And a bright red goblin lady, yeah, that would definitely sell. Menace. Man, we are working our way through the goblins. And this one was kind of weird, but I do rather like it. So the socialite girlfriend of Harry Osborn, who turns out to be this menace goblin, and then gets impregnated by, I think it was supposed to be Norman, but then they double turned and they were like, no, it wasn't Norman. Everyone relax. It was Harry. But still, we got some freaky artwork of this pregnant goblin lady. Oh, didn't like that. And now you can not like it too. Or if you do like it, more power to you. But yeah, and they eventually had one of those rare instances where they go all the way through with the birth and there is now another goblin child, but they're like a normal child. It's okay. They didn't come out all funny looking. But the bottom line is the Menace character would be a fun, different version of the goblin, because it's not just a green goblin. Got the weird filed down horns, kind of like Hellboy, and just a manic sort of look on a unique type of glider. Yeah, I kind of like this. The upgraded Lady Beetle. Janice Lincoln, commonly known as the Beetle, or sometimes Lady Beetle, is a Marvel Comics supervillain introduced in Captain America 607 from 2010. As the daughter of the crime boss Tombstone, unlike previous Beetles, she is a former lawyer who sought the thrill of a criminal lifestyle. As a child, Janice idolized her father's criminal activities. She became a defense attorney using her legal knowledge to navigate the underworld. While practicing, she was appointed to defend Baron Zemo. She requested a suit of armor from Zemo and the Fixer to pursue her own path as a costumed criminal. Then later, during the gang war storyline, she threw away the old colorful costume and re-debuted as a much more fearsome-looking Lady Beetle. Of course, we already have a Lady Beetle figure. Janice Lincoln, pretty well represented in our Marvel Legends collection. But what if we went full-on BDSM with this costume, which is exactly what she did in the gang war storyline? I can't remember what it was that pushed her over the edge, but she basically looked in the mirror and went, oh, we ain't playing no more. It's time to get rid of the fun, goofy, campy, green and purple type costume. Let's bring in something a little more badass. And I think whoever designed the costume took the B in badass and went, what if we throw in a few other letters? Because this full-on leather mask gear, it certainly looks threatening. If someone was approaching me wearing this, I'd be like, oh, we are not going to have a good time. Or are we? I don't know. That's up to you. But this version of the Janice Lincoln Beetle, yeah, it would be one that we probably wouldn't get anytime soon, I don't think. But if you want to build a very modern street level gangster display, then you might want to add her. Lady Scorpion. This is a fun one that you could do pretty easily by just reusing your go-to female body, as long as it was the decent one. I'm talking about the Psylocke body. Gotta have an ab crunch these days. I'm sorry, but no, actually I said sorry twice. I retract that second sorry. I'll say sorry once in this regard, but that's it, because if you're making a female body without an ab crunch, ooh, it better be pretty darn impressive and warrant not having it. My little ab crunch soapbox here, because the modern female figures are really good. The new Psylocke, fantastic. And then when you compare it to figures that don't have the ab crunch, it's like, man, these look so stiff. Anyway, I wasn't talking about the articulation. I was talking about the character. And Lady Scorpion, or Scorpina, I think she goes by, that would just be a fun one. Repaint a female body, stick a tail on it, boom, Bob's your uncle. You got Scorpina, or whatever name you want to give her. Call her what you will, I think she'd be a lot of fun. Lady Octopus. Carolyn Trainer was a student and fan of Otto Octavius, raised by her father, scientist Seward Trainer, to value scientific achievement above human life. Following the death of Otto Octavius during the Clone Saga, Carolyn sought to continue his legacy. She obtained his titanium steel tentacles and developed a harness to mentally control them. She first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 406 from October 1995, initially calling herself Dr. Octopus 2. She worked with the Hand to resurrect the original Dr. Octopus, subsequently adopting the name Lady Octopus to differentiate herself, acting as his assistant before becoming a solo villain. Lady Octopus, Carolyn Trainer, she would have to be the 90s Clone Saga version. It's got to be that look. I'm sorry, I'm being very strict on this one, because the bright purple hair and the rather gaudy green and gold costume, it's so of its time. They have her featuring in the modern comics. The last time I remember seeing her was the Devil's Reign story. She may have appeared since, but it was in a much more sort of sleek, modern, less fun-looking costume. And to that I say, why? I want something that's gonna pop off the shelf. And those 90s designs do exactly that. Give her silly metal tiara, because why wouldn't you wear it? You're a supervillain. You gotta have showmanship. Plus, I love that she's the daughter of Seward Trainer, who's a character we're never ever gonna see, not just in Marvel Legends form, but just ever again. He was the mentor of Ben Reilly. He's long gone, but the fact that his daughter is still active in the Marvel Universe, I kind of dig that. So yeah, I'd love to see this. The Spider-Goblin. Peter Parker becomes infected with the psychological sins of Norman Osborn, turning him into a villainous Spider-Goblin. This saga focuses on the corruption of Spider-Man's morals and his descent into using his powers for vengeance. I'm trying to limit myself to not doing too many spider costumes, all right? I'm doing my best. But the Spider-Goblin? I would kind of get on board with that. And that's going to link me to the next entry as well. Because I love the idea of having these dark versions of Spider-Man that incorporate the characteristics of one of his main villains. So Spider-Goblin here, really good fun. And the story arc where this took place, it was a great time. Peter getting infected with the sins of Norman Osborn. It was kind of funny that the sins of Norman Osborn were like a tangible thing that was kind of being used as a MacGuffin for a few stories. And Peter, with the gloves off, basically, was so much fun. Everything that Peter had always wanted to do, but his morals and his compass wouldn't let him do, all of a sudden that's out the window. And it's like, what would Spider-Man be like with the Green Goblin's morality? Well, we get the Spider-Goblin and a fun mashup of the two costumes. Spider-Man on a Goblin glider. I have feelings about that, because we got that in the comics as well when it wasn't the Spider-Goblin. It was just Peter going, hey, yeah, a glider makes sense. No, it doesn't. But as the Spider-Goblin, yeah, it totally does. And it would make a wicked action figure. So this next one is about as up-to-date as we can get for a Marvel Legend. This is the Spider-Carnage that we get coming out of the Torment storyline, or the Death Spiral storyline, which I still haven't got up to reading yet. But I've seen the art and I like it enough that I want it, especially because this is another one of those Spider-Man getting mashed up with one of his greatest enemy type combinations. Basically, I'm a big fan of the Batman Metal Dark Knights Metal story. You know, the one I'm talking about, the one that gave us the Batman Who Laughs and Devastator and Red Death. I thought that was such a fun concept. And Spider-Man getting a version of that, oh man, I would love that as a dedicated display. Having Spider-Goblin, Spider-Carnage, and whatever other mashups you could do, that would be wicked. So yeah, Spider-Man as Carnage. It's a cool design. I love the raised spider coming off like Carnage tendrils. Yeah, you know what? The more I say it, the more I agree with it. Hasbro, you know what you gotta do. Following the Blood Hunt event, Doctor Doom becomes the new Sorcerer Supreme and deems himself above the trivial tasks of defending Earth from mystical scions of Cyttorak. Doom selects Spider-Man as his champion, providing him with magical arcane armor and the Reeds of Ragodor, which grant him 8 extra lives to fight these scions, effectively forcing him to die and be resurrected multiple times in order to save the world. Another Spider-Man costume. I know I want to have more original characters, but I thought the many deaths of Spider-Man. That was it. I was going to say the many deaths of Doom. No, Doom was fine. Doom was chilling. He didn't want to suffer many deaths. So instead he was like, Spider-Man, I'm going to let you take this one. And boy, did he. Spider-Man got put through the ringer in this story. But personally, I think so did the reader as well. I got kind of bored with that story after a while. It's like, oh, Spider-Man's fighting another God-type character. Are they going to kill him? Yep. Okay, is he going to come back? Yep. Rinse and repeat. It's like, how many deaths does he have? Is it 8? Oh, man, this is going to go on for a while. But my gripes with the story notwithstanding, the Doctor Strange Mystic-style spider costume, it was kind of fun. So as far as Spider-Man costume redesigns go, this isn't one of the worst. After exhausting his lives fighting the Scions and protecting civilians from a cosmic blight, Peter faces the final Scion, Calyx. To combat the immense destruction of the Blight, Spider-Man embraces the power of Cyttorak directly, transforming into the Spider-Naut, a combination of Spider-Man's agility and the Juggernaut's unstoppable force. Web spinning out of the many deaths of Spider-Man story, we get the Spider Juggernaut. Now this one, I tell you what, I'm going to mash it up with another entry because like I said, I don't want to double up on characters too much or double up on Spider-Man costumes too much. And even though he has the mighty powers of the Juggernaut, he is still just another Spider-Man costume. But it is a fun costume to have. And come on, we just got the Marvel vs. Capcom Juggernaut, or the Gamerverse Juggernaut. Call it what you will, but it is a pretty amazing version of Kane Marko that could be so easily repainted into a Spider Juggernaut. I do wonder if anyone's done that custom. I haven't seen one online, but it's very possible. Of course, it's short-lived, but it was there, and hey, Marvel Legends, you've got the base body for it. So it wouldn't be too difficult to do one of those. Also, while we're talking about Juggernaut variants, that just reminded me of the nightmare fuel that was the Sin Eater Juggernaut, which I don't think we would ever get as a figure, but I wanted to include for like a little deep cut reference for this video because it was kind of cool when the Sin Eater came back as this demonic character. His gimmick was that whoever he shot, he would actually absorb their powers. So at one point, I guess he shoots the Juggernaut. I guess that's what happened. Again, my memory is so hazy. But he ends up with this grotesque body horror transformation into the Sin Eater Juggernaut, which even though it would never happen, it'd be pretty cool to have it on the shelf. Dr. Spencer Smythe, a scientist obsessed with proving his genius, created the first Spider Slayer to validate J. Jonah Jameson's anti-Spider-Man editorials. This first creation appeared in Amazing Spider-Man number 25 from June of 1965. The first Spider Slayer was a large humanoid robot capable of scaling walls and equipped with sensors to detect Spider-Man's unique spider impulses and covered in a chemical that prevented web from sticking. Jameson remotely piloted the first robot, nearly capturing Spider-Man until the web slinger was able to destroy it. The Spider Slayers. Man, we're spoilt for choice. I tell you what, if I need to fudge the numbers at the end of this video, I could include so many different Spider Slayers. There were all these rumors we were going to be getting a Spider Slayer Build-A-Figure for a Spider-Man wave, and it never happened. I think the wave that had the armadillo as the Build-A-Figure, that was what we all thought was going to be a Spider Slayer. And I was like, okay, I'm not mad, but I am surprised. And I think at the time I was thinking to myself, it's okay. We're going to get another Spider-Man Build-A-Figure wave pretty soon. I don't think we've had one since. And that was about 5 years ago. Come on, Hasbro, throw me a bone, man. Give us another Spider-Man Build-A-Figure wave and give us a classic Spider Slayer to go with it. Maybe like the OG one with the TV monitor with J. Jonah Jameson's face on it. That would be really fun. But then later in the 90s, my first ever Spider-Man trade paperback was Invasion of the Spider Slayers. And some of those designs, they were awesome. I mean, they did the triple changer one, the 3 combiners in the animated show. And we even got an action figure of that back in the 90s. But then there was like a small alien xenomorph style one. That looked amazing. You're spoiled for choice, Hasbro. Whatever form you do it, for the love of goodness, will you give us any kind of Spider Slayer? The ultimate Spider Slayer. Desperate to kill Spider-Man personally, Alistair Smythe eventually transformed himself into a living weapon. He encased his body in a specialized bioorganic carapace that connected to his spine, restoring his ability to walk and granting him superhuman strength, speed, and durability. As the ultimate Spider Slayer, he gained bird-like talons, razor-sharp blades on his forearms and shoulders, and built-in web shooters. And speaking of Spider Slayers, how about the ultimate Spider Slayer, Alistair Smythe? And okay, we do kind of have Alistair Smythe. No, I won't even say kind of. We have Alistair Smythe, but he's the animated version, which is very, very similar to the comic book ones, but it's not quite right. So if they went for the classic OG comic book Alistair Smythe, you wouldn't have to tinker with the formula too much. You just have to give him a different head sculpt that looks a little more gnarly, a little more freaky. Of course, he would need his glorious Kentucky waterfall business at the front, party at the back 90s hairstyle. And also you'd have to turn his shoulder spooters into sharp daggers. That was a funny thing they changed for the cartoon. I guess maybe they thought that the shoulder daggers were too threatening looking for a Saturday morning. So they turned them into these weird bioorganic looking spooters, which honestly I thought was even more unsettling. It was kind of like changing Morbius from a vampire who bites people to one who has these weird sucker mouths on his palms. It's like, dude, that's way scarier. Ugh, get away from me, you freak. Anyway, getting a classic Spider Slayer? Yeah, Alistair Smythe, bring it on. The Enforcers, a trio of criminal specialists, created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, first appearing in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 10 from March of 1964. They serve as hired muscle and expert hitmen for various New York City crime bosses, most notably the Big Man. The original members were Montana, aka Jackson Bryce, the leader, specializing in using a lasso to constrict or trip his opponents. Also, there was Ox, aka Raymond Block, the muscle of the group, possessing high human strength and durability. And finally, there was Fancy Dan, Daniel Brito, the expert in martial arts, mainly judo and karate, and stealth, who despite his short stature, was an expert hand-to-hand fighter. The Enforcers. Dude, I say dude like I'm talking to one person. You know what? I am. This is a little back and forth between us. Dude, how great would it be to get the Enforcers, considering that we have so many street-level characters. That's what I was talking about earlier with the fact that we've got Hammerhead, Jigsaw, Kingpin, obviously, the Rose. We got all these gangsters. They're going to need someone to enforce for them. All right, so let's get all of the Enforcers. Let's get Ox. Let's get Fancy Dan. Let's get Jobby Blobson. Let's get all of them. I forgot who the other guys are, but the Enforcers were introduced like way super early, like issue 3 or so of The Amazing Spider-Man. It's somewhere around there. Don't quote me on that. But the fact of the matter is, they are as old school gets. And if you flick through all the old original issues of Amazing Spider-Man, they are conspicuous by their absence because everyone else has action figures. But the Enforcers, we're still waiting. Originally a street thug and bodyguard in New York City, Mountain Marko was once a regular, albeit large, human thug. In his youth, he attempted to shake down a distracted teenager who was in fact Peter Parker. Parker, worried about his Aunt May's illness, effortlessly brushed Marko aside, sending him flying into garbage cans. Humiliated by the defeat, Marko became obsessed with physical strength. He became an obsessive bodybuilder and bodyguard, vowing never to be overpowered again. Marko joined the Magia crime syndicate and became a loyal enforcer of Silvermane. To make him a more effective weapon, Magia scientists used genetic engineering to enhance his strength and stamina. Obsessed with becoming even stronger, Marko later started using horse steroids, which increased his size and strength, but damaged his health and mental stability. He was further augmented later by technology to give him an extra enhancement in future fights. Someone who kind of fits right alongside the Enforcers, Mountain Marko. If ever there was a 1970s or 1980s style pro wrestler name, that's what it is right there. Definitely a jobber name as well. And currently in the ring from Bluesky Cabana, Mountain Marko. And you just like put one hand up. And that's it. That's the jobber thing right there. Anyway, Mountain Marko. One of those characters, once again, I accept. Probably not going to make, because he's not the most toyetic in the world. What's his gimmick? Well, he's a big guy. Oh, like a giant. No. He's just big, like, compared to regular folks. Okay. So yeah, not the most exciting in the world, but he's a staple old school character. And if there's one thing you know about me, is that I am pretty darn old school. Ben Reilly as the Jackal. After being killed by the Green Goblin in the 90s, Ben's remains were collected by the original Jackal. Warren resurrects Ben over 26 times, attempting to fix clone degeneration. This process drives Ben insane, destroying his moral compass. Ben eventually escapes, defeats Warren, and adopts the Jackal moniker, using his own version of cloning technology to do good by bringing back dead loved ones, such as Gwen Stacy. Ben's New You technology begins to fail, causing his reanimates to turn into deadly creatures. Peter stops his plan, and Ben escapes to Las Vegas, trying to redeem himself as the Scarlet Spider once again. This one kind of pains me, but I kind of want it too. I'm so torn. The Jackal, Ben Reilly. If you ever want the ultimate version of a monkey's paw wish, it's me getting Ben Reilly back in the comics as part of the clone conspiracy, which was just terrible. Just a terrible story written by a good comic book writer. What's up with that? But the initial revelation of the Jackal being Ben Reilly was awesome. I was like, oh my goodness, it's Ben Reilly. Why doesn't he have blonde hair? Oh no. This isn't exactly how I would want it to be. Therefore, it's terrible. But the Jackal look was kind of cool. The red suit, the Anubis-style mask. I dug that. I thought it's a nice look. Plus, for Ben Reilly, we have so many other looks. We got Scarlet Spider. We've got the Beyond Spider-Man. We've got Chasm, of course. We've got Sensational Spider-Man. So having him in his Jackal persona, that would fit the timeline really well, even if it's a low point in the timeline. I guess they decided they had to make him as different from Peter Parker as possible, because that was always the argument to not have Ben Reilly in the comics. They're like, well, he's redundant. He's just Peter with blonde hair. Well, let's completely destroy his character then. So he's nothing like Peter. Yeah, that was not the solution. Luckily, they finally course-corrected in the comics, but I worry that in doing so, they've also written him out of the comics. Who knows if we'll ever see him again, but at least he got to ride off into the sunset. So it was a happy ending, but the start, that was a pretty dubious start. Clash. Clayton Cole as a Marvel Comics supervillain and occasional antagonist of Spider-Man, who was introduced as a genius, tech-savvy teenager who idolized Peter Parker before turning to crime. Clayton Cole was a socially inept, homeschooled genius who became obsessed with the masked vigilante Spider-Man after watching him fight Crusher Hogan, believing himself responsible for making Spider-Man famous via online videos. Inspired to be a hero, Cole used his extraordinary engineering talents to design a suit equipped with powerful sonic pulse generators. He adopted the moniker Clash, intending to be a superhero, but quickly veering into ego-driven criminal activity. Clash! Doom! Ha! I could have done a full-on Freddie Mercury, but my neighbors would have hated me. But Clash! This is a bit of a deep-cut character, but if you know me, you know, I'm all about the deep-cut characters. And he's got kind of a cool sort of looking suit. Nothing over the top or crazy, but it's a fun little design that also wouldn't break the bank to make. You're pretty much just going to repaint a standard body. I'm not expecting an unmasked head or anything like that, because you would be like, oh, who is that? Clash? No, never heard of him. But the look of the character, yeah, cheap, easy repaint, go for it. The Kangaroo, aka Frank Oliver, is a minor Marvel Comics supervillain and foe of Spider-Man, first appearing in The Amazing Spider-Man 81 from 1969, created by Stan Lee and John Buscema. Frank Oliver was an Australian native who became obsessed with kangaroos, spending his youth in the outback studying their movements and training himself to leap and jump with similar power. He became a professional boxer, but was banned after seriously injuring an opponent. Fleeing to the United States as a stowaway, he became a fugitive and turned to crime, utilizing his high-jumping and leaping boxing style and fighting techniques. He first fought Spider-Man while trying to steal a case containing dangerous bacteria, mistakenly believing it held jewels. The Kangaroo, of course, has a few different looks in the comics. When he first appeared, he was just kind of a dude in a vest. That does nothing for me. Where's the Robo-Kangaroo mech suit? That's what I'm talking about. Because then you can start to build the Legion of Losers. Kangaroo on his own is just a blonde Aussie guy who hops around. Boring. But one thing I just remembered, thinking about the costume in my mind palace, he has ears. I'm pretty sure, picturing it right now, he has ears on his costume, which are completely surplus to requirements. What? Why? What? There's no reason for them, but he's got them, and that makes him amazingly stupid. But I kind of love it for that. So yes, Robo-Kangaroo, let's build our Legion of Losers. Martin Blank, known as the Gibbon, first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 110 from 1972 and was created by Stan Lee and John Romita Sr. He is a tragic, often comedic character, known as one of Spider-Man's most pathetic and sympathetic foes. Martin Blank was born a mutant with a unique physiology, possessing ape-like features including long limbs, immense strength, and natural agility. Due to his appearance, he was bullied, mocked, and ostracized throughout his childhood, which he spent in an orphanage. Unable to fit into normal society, he worked briefly in a circus as the Human Gibbon, wearing a suit to play up his bestial look. Wanting to do good, a naive and lonely Martin approached Spider-Man, offering to be his partner. Spider-Man laughed at him, which shattered Martin's confidence and turned his admiration into enraged resentment. Kraven the Hunter manipulated this rage, training Martin, who donned a full Gibbon costume, to attack Spider-Man. Despite this, Martin usually lacked the evil intent to be a true villain, and has frequently shifted between villainy, neutral, and hero, seeking acceptance. And you couldn't have the Legion of Losers if you don't include the Gibbon as well. And hey, look, we have got the Grizzly, and he's like the biggest, chonkiest member of the Legion, and he's already there. They've made him, and Hasbro did a real nice job with that figure. I saw him in person the other day on one of my toy hunts, and yeah, that is a stonking, chonking, bonking, big honking, right out of words, but a big chunky figure. So that's a fantastic job they've done with that. So now we need to surround him with the other guys, and the fact that they haven't done that yet, woof. It's a missed opportunity. The Gibbon, not remotely as impressive looking, but as a fun, goofy little guy, yeah, I'd love to see that. The Crime Master, a legacy villain identified in Marvel Comics, primarily serving as a masked crime lord aiming to rule New York City's underworld. While multiple individuals have used the name, the persona is defined by ruthless, non-superpowered tactical leadership and a high-tech arsenal. The original Crime Master was Nicholas Nick Lewis Sr., introduced in Amazing Spider-Man number 26 from 1965. Nick Lewis Sr. was a mob boss who sought to organize all non-Magia criminals under his control. He formed an uneasy alliance with the Green Goblin, as both knew each other's secret identities. He attempted to kill Spider-Man, but was shot and killed by police on a rooftop after Frederick Foswell, aka the Big Man, revealed his location. Crime Master, you can see from some of these entries that I'm a big street level kind of guy. Especially for Spider-Man, because for Spidey, I'd keep the cosmic stuff away, keep the magic stuff away. That's what Spider-Man should be doing. He should be fighting gangsters and mad scientists. That's Spider-Man's wheelhouse. That's where he fits, because he's one of those street-level, everyman type characters. Yeah, you can bring him up into space every now and then if you want to, or you can have him team up with Doctor Strange, but that should never be the crux of what the character is based around. That's why I hated that Dark Web storyline so much. I was like, oh great, so Ben Reilly's back, he's evil, and he's also mystical and goblin-y and demon-y now. Great. Is there anything that I can still enjoy about the character? But what I'm saying is, the Crime Master, that's great. That's exactly where I want Spider-Man to be. On the streets, battling evil criminals. And Crime Master, he's one of the worst. And by that, I mean one of the best. Norton G. Fester, aka The Looter, first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 36 from May of 1966 and was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. He's a minor, often comedic Spider-Man villain characterized by his obsession with science and greed. Norman Fester was a researcher with massive ambition but little talent, who believed his theories on meteors could change the world. After failing to get funding for his research, Fester discovered a freshly fallen, mysterious meteor. While trying to chip away at it to study it, he released a special gas that coated him. The gas gave Fester superhuman strength, speed, durability, and enhanced agility. Realizing the potential of his new abilities, he immediately decided on a life of crime to fund his continued, self-financed research, adopting the name The Looter. The Looter! What does he do? He loots! That's it! Might as well call him the burglar or the robber. Actually, the burglar wouldn't be a bad action figure. I'd kind of like to have the burglar, the dude who shot Uncle Ben. He did come back in the comics and featured a couple of times. I think he died in Amazing Spider-Man 200 of a heart attack, and then his daughter blamed Spider-Man for it. But that's a different entry for another time. Actually, it's not, so I might as well include it here. You got the burglar. But I wasn't going to include him because he's just a dude. Although, hey, never a bad thing to have more street thugs and hoodlum-looking characters. But the one that I was talking about was the Looter, because at least he is more toyetic. He is a supervillain, even if his superpower is just robbing stuff. But hey, you gotta start somewhere. And if it's another D-level villain to add to the Spider-Man Rogues gallery, I'm never going to complain about getting more of those. Rocket Racer. Robert Farrell was the eldest of 7 children. Following the death of his mother, Emma Johnson Farrell, he became responsible for supporting his younger siblings. Despite his high intellect, Robert couldn't make enough money to sustain his family. Using his skills as a mechanical engineer, he built rocket-powered skateboard fueled by hydrazone and nitrous oxide, along with rocket-firing gloves. He donned a yellow and red costume and became the Rocket Racer, embarking on an initially successful but short-lived career of theft and extortion to pay his family's bills. Early in his career, Rocket Racer was defeated by Spider-Man. Later, he sought help from the Tinkerer to upgrade his gear, but was again stopped by Spider-Man and forced to deal with the consequences of his criminal acts, including having his bail paid by a sinister bondsman who tried to force him to continue stealing. After being pursued by the criminal Big Wheel and helped by Spider-Man, Robert decided to leave his life of crime behind. He reformed and later joined the Outlaws, a team of reformed criminals, and became a friendly ally to Spider-Man. Rocket Racer, one of the wackier Spider-Man characters, but not so wacky that it's ridiculous, but just kind of fun, and a big old staple of the early 90s, teamed up with Spider-Man and Silver Sable and Sandman and a few others. Man, I'm trying to remember what that Spider-Man team was called, and I can't think, but there was a team name that maybe I'll find in the edit, and if I don't, hopefully you can help me out in the comments. But Rocket Racer, yeah, that would be perfect for a Marvel Legend. A base body with a little bit of extra armor and then a cool little rocket sled accessory. That would sell itself. And once again, you're building out some classic D-level characters. And don't tell me that's mean to Rocket Racer. He's a dealer, at best, a D-list character. And if you think otherwise, then give me your top 5 Rocket Racer storylines. I'll wait. No, I won't wait. That'd be a very boring video. But you know what wouldn't be a boring action figure? Yeah, Rocket Racer. The Big Wheel. Jackson Wheel was a corrupt businessman who embezzled funds from his own company. Fearing exposure, Wheel hired the teen criminal Rocket Racer to steal the incriminating evidence. Instead of destroying it, Rocket Racer blackmailed Wheel, continuously demanding more money and mocking him for being called Big Wheel. Humiliated and facing financial ruin, a desperate Wheel tried to self-delete by jumping off a dock, but was prevented from doing so by Rocket Racer, who continued his taunts. Oh gosh. Inspired by the nickname Big Wheel and knowing the Rocket Racer's equipment was upgraded by the Tinkerer, Wheel visited the mechanical genius himself. The Tinkerer constructed a giant armored steel mono-wheel for Wheel, equipped it with laser pulses, guns, and claws capable of scaling buildings. Wheel, taking the name Big Wheel, set out to kill the Rocket Racer and get his revenge. During the debut, he clashed with Spider-Man, who was also pursuing Rocket Racer, but due to his inexperience, he drove the Wheel into the Hudson River, where he was presumed dead. If you want to go a little more wacky, though, Big Wheel. This is something that would be prohibitive by the cost of what it would need to be if you wanted to do it properly, because no way are they going to fund a HasLab for the Big Wheel. I do love the fact that if there was some kind of made-to-order HasLab Big Wheel, there would be crazy sickos like myself who would go for it. But I don't think it would be enough to justify the cost. And I don't think that the powers that be at Hasbro would also think that it would justify the cost. Highly unlikely, but a giant, mechanized, militarized, armored Ferris wheel with laser cannons. Yeah, to have that as the centerpiece of your Spider-Man display, I wouldn't hate it. Madam Web. Cassandra Webb was born in Salem, Oregon, blind and suffering from a chronic neuromuscular disease that caused severe muscle weakness. To compensate for her physical limitations, Cassandra developed intense mutant psychic abilities, including telepathy, clairvoyance, and precognition. Her husband created an elaborate spiderweb-like life support system for her, which she is connected to permanently. The machine manages her bodily functions and keeps her alive, allowing her to focus entirely on her psychic visions. She first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 210 from November 1980, using her abilities to help Spider-Man locate a kidnapping victim. Now, what was I saying recently about hating mystical things being pushed into my Spider-Man stories? Yeah, it was that I didn't like it. And then we have Madam Web, and I'm like, yes, I would like this though, please, because it's Madam Web. I think even though I didn't like her being inserted into the animated Spider-Man cartoon, the fact that she was means that I do have a certain level of nostalgia for Madam Web. But also, yeah, what a lazy storytelling device, where Spider-Man is just going to get given all of his sort of plot direction via Madam Web because she already knows what's going to happen. Not the best route to take with the cartoon. But anyway, that's a complaint for 30 years ago. But what we could still get, though, is a nice Madam Web figure out of it. Would have to be a deluxe, because she'd need the full-on big Madam Web throne with all the spider web bits coming off of it. It would be very involved. And again, one of those ones that maybe wouldn't justify the cost. But if you want to complete what I would consider not essential characters, but second tier essential Spider-Man characters, there's definitely an argument to be had that you could justify her. The Trapster, originally known as Paste Pot Pete, is a Marvel Comics supervillain created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, debuting in Strange Tales 104 from January of 1963. Pete Petruski was a brilliant research chemist working for a major corporation in New York City. He invented a highly advanced multipolymer adhesive compound capable of bonding virtually any material. Bored with his scientific career and seeking a more lucrative, exciting lifestyle, Petruski decided to use his invention for criminal purposes. He developed a paste gun to shoot this adhesive, created fireproof paste, and designed specialized boots for wall crawling, adopting the moniker Paste Pot Pete. That was the best he could come up with. The Trapster, aka Paste Pot Pete. I do love my alliteration, and so did Stan Lee. I don't know if Stan Lee created him, but hey, Stan Lee was the master of alliteration. Throwing in a third initial, that's the same as well. You can't be mad at that. But it seems that Paste Pot Pete was thrown to the wayside, and the Trapster was the name that seemed to last a whole lot longer. And hey, he has withstood the test of time, been around literally for decades and decades now. And no matter how many times the Punisher might shoot him, or he gets blown up or beaten in some way, shape, or form, he always seems to come back. And he's one of those characters that I've got a lot of affection for, because I love a lovable loser. Some alliteration there as well. And that's exactly what he is. He's never risen to great heights, although I do remember one story where he straight up beat Spider-Man, and Spider-Man was totally humiliated by it. He was like, I cannot believe I've been defeated by the Trapster. No one can ever hear about this. And don't worry, Spidey, I won't tell anyone. But I wouldn't say no to getting an action figure of him. The Wizard, Bentley Whitman, a supervillain and frequent enemy of the Fantastic Four, first appeared in Strange Tales 102 from 1962. Bentley Whitman was a prodigy, growing up as a near superhuman genius who excelled in multiple scientific fields, earning PhDs and gaining immense wealth by inventing advanced technology. Initially, he used his tech to become a renowned stage illusionist, escapologist, and master of disguise, taking The Wizard as a show name. Bored with success and envious of the attention given to the newly famous Fantastic Four, specifically the Human Torch, Whitman decided to use his inventions for crime to prove his superiority. He first gained attention by staging a fake emergency to trap the Human Torch and framing him for crimes which resulted in his own capture. After multiple losses, the Wizard adopted the moniker Wingless Wizard and realized he could not defeat the Fantastic Four alone. He founded the Frightful Four, assembling Sandman, Trapster, and Medusa, establishing himself as a premier scientific supervillain and organizer of villainous teams. The Wizard. This is a character who kind of brings in a bit more of a Fantastic Four connection as well. Maybe the next video might have to be the top 100 most wanted Fantastic Four characters. But the reason I say that is because I'm thinking of the Frightful Four. So that was the Wizard, Medusa, Sandman, and someone else who my brain can't conjure up right now. But don't worry, I know you probably know and you're screaming it at the camera. But yes, the Wizard, a fun, wacky design with the big old helmet and just something that he reminds me a little bit. What's the Inhuman character? Man, I'm giving you your homework while watching this video. Who's the Inhuman that we got? Was it Gorgon or someone had like a big dome head? Just reuse that. You have my permission, Hasbro. You can reuse that. Paint it purple. The kids won't be able to tell the difference. But getting a wizard, that would be great. Then you could build out your Frightful Four. Or at least from what I can remember, Frightful 3. Don't worry, I will remember the third one eventually. Flipside, a psychopathic android from the Marvel 2099 universe who acts as a dark, distorted doppelganger of Spider-Man. Originally created during the Heroic Age to mimic the first superhero it encountered, the robot remained dormant for decades until it was discovered and activated in the year 2099 by a group of scavengers led by Pack-Rat. Designed to emulate superheroes, Flipside was created to adapt to the hero it met, but was broken and placed in storage during the early days of the 2099 era. The gang known as the Foragers found the dormant robot and, after capturing Spider-Man 2099, used him to unlock or repair it. Because Flipside's database was outdated and did not include Miguel O'Hara, it combined historical data patterns for Spider-Man and Venom in order to define itself. This combination resulted in a malfunctioning, delusional robot that obsessed over Miguel being its best friend. Flipside 2099. Little story time here. When I first saw the Spider-Man cartoon, 1994, first episode, Spider-Man and the Lizard, I was just captivated. That was my initial moment of, oh my goodness, I think I love Spider-Man. And I did. So I went straight out to the newsagents and I bought every Spider-Man comic on the rack, one of which was Spider-Man 2099, which I found a little bit scary because it wasn't normal Spider-Man. It was a weird, subversive, otherworld type thing. But we had Flipside, and that's probably where my love of evil clones, cyborgs, and doppelgangers came from, because Flipside is all of those. He's an android that copied Spider-Man, but also copied Venom as well, which basically means you get the coolest versions of both characters in a wicked costume that was the one cosplay I ever did, was Flipside 2099. No one knew who it was besides me, and that was all that mattered. So having an actual proper action figure of this, I would love to see it. And Hasbro, it's basically just a repaint of Spider-Man 2099. So come on, what are you waiting for? Give me a little bit of Flipside. I promise to buy 2 just to make it worth your while. The Foolkiller, a mantle adopted by several Marvel characters, generally portrayed as insane, highly skilled vigilantes who murder people they deem fools, be they sinners, criminals, or those lacking a poetic nature. The character was created by writer Steve Gerber and first appeared in Man-Thing issue number 3 from 1974. The Foolkiller most associated with Spider-Man is the second version of the character, Gregory P. Salinger. Introduced in Omega the Unknown 8-9, Salinger was a poet who became mentally unstable and was imprisoned for disorderly conduct. He was cellmates with Richard Roy, who told him stories of the original Foolkiller. Upon release, Salinger stole the late Everbest's costume and purification gun. Unlike Everbest's religious fanaticism, Salinger targeted those guilty of materialism, mediocrity, or lacking a poetic nature. He battled the Defenders, attacked Spider-Man, and was institutionalized, later resurfacing as a member of Deadpool's Mercs for Money and acting as a therapist to supervillains. Foolkiller. What a great, deep cut, ridiculous choice, if I do say so myself. Let me just pat myself on the back and give myself a medal for creativity. Foolkiller hates fools. Can't him and Mr. T. What a two-pack that would be. One kills the fools, the other one pities them. He's like, I pity the fool who was just killed there by Foolkiller. I don't think there's any danger of us getting a Foolkiller anytime soon, but I just kind of like the idea of getting a Foolkiller. Maybe I'm on my own. I might be on Foolkiller Island. But hey, it's a nice place where everyone has a Foolkiller action figure. And by everyone, I mean just me. Population of 1. But you know what? Still doesn't mean I wouldn't want to see it happen. The original Willow the Wisp. Created by Len Wein and Ross Andru, he first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 167 from April of 1977. Dr. Jackson Arvad was a brilliant physicist working in the Brand Corporation's electromagnetic research department. While working late due to high expectations from his boss, James Melvin, Arvad was caught in an accident involving a magno chamber he had designed. The accident caused the electromagnetic particles that make up his body to disperse, transforming him into a non-corporal, ghostly entity. While he could control his density similar to the Vision, the state was unstable and threatened his life. Criminal scientist Jonas Harrow took advantage of Arvad's desperate state, implanting a device in his skull to force him to commit crimes, leading to confrontations with Spider-Man. Willow the Wisp. The only reason that I've ever come across this character at all, can you guess? It's because he featured in the Clone Saga just for one issue. Or maybe two. There was a full story with Ben Reilly as Spider-Man, and he was battling Dragon Man, and Willow the Wisp was involved. It's been a long time since I read that issue, but it left a lasting impression of me. I was like, okay, Willow the Wisp. I recognize that name. Like, that existed before Marvel, right? Willow the Wisp was a thing. Was it a fairy tale or a folklore? I don't know. I'm going to do some fun Googling when I'm editing this video. But just for me being a Clone Saga completionist, I would absolutely insist that he is well overdue. Purely for me and what I want. And if someone else might like him too, well, there you go. You can please maybe two people with this figure. The Spider Queen, a supervillain primarily known as the antagonist of the 2004 Spectacular Spider-Man story, The Queen, and the 2011 Spider Island event. She is a mutant and a genetic throwback known as Homo insectus, capable of controlling humans carrying a vestigial insect gene. With her origin dating back to the Second World War, Adriana Anna Soria was a member of the Women's Auxiliary Corps and became the first female Marine to go into combat. The US government drafted her into a secret initiative, Project Crossroads, aimed at recreating the super soldier serum. Her unit was exposed to massive amounts of radiation during tests in the Bikini Atoll. While her unit died, Soria survived, but the radiation drove her insane and activated her dormant Homo insectus powers. Deemed a failure, she was institutionalized. She escaped in the 1950s, kidnapped the project scientist, Dr. David Jaffe, and went into hiding, plotting revenge against the country that betrayed her. The Spider Queen. Man, of all the ways of recreating the Captain America super soldier serum, you could think like, oh, this might go wrong in various sort of ways and means, might end up with like a crazy jacked up Hulk dude or something, but I don't think the scientists ever thought, or we might get a Spider Queen. Pretty unlikely, but guess what? It happened, and now we have the Spider Queen. And the story that we got of Spider Island was actually a whole lot of fun. I thought the premise was stupid. Like, everyone in New York gets spider powers and becomes spider monsters. That's dumb. It was actually a really fun time. I love it when a comic book story can shut my mouth and go like, wow, Dave, you thought that was going to be terrible. You should have had more faith because look at you now. You're enjoying this. Spider Island was a great time. Spider Queen, great antagonist, and also gave us some awesome redesigns of characters as spider monsters. There was a Captain America tarantula monster. Kane got turned into a similar spider creature. There was great stuff in there. So yeah, give us a Spider Queen figure, and I might just go back and reread that story because in hindsight, that was a really good time. The Thousand. Carl King is a deeply disturbing Marvel supervillain introduced in Spider-Man's Tangled Web number 1 to 3 as a dark mirror to Spider-Man. Carl King was a cruel childhood bully who tormented Peter Parker throughout school, often subjecting him to severe physical abuse. After learning that Peter was Spider-Man, Carl was filled with intense jealousy, believing that he deserved the powers instead. In a sick attempt to gain these powers, Carl found the radioactive spider that had bitten Peter and consumed its decaying carcass. Instead of gaining super strength, the radioactive remains disintegrated Carl, transforming his consciousness into a sentient hive mind composed of roughly 1,000 spiders. If there's one thing we all know about Garth Ennis, is that he hates superheroes. And yet Marvel keep asking him to write superhero stories. And what happens when they do that is we get comics like The Thousand, which is so creepy, but kind of fun as well. I think the creepiest things are the Glenn Fabry covers, but it was the interiors where the real horror lived, because we got the character of the Thousand, one man's psyche that was spread amongst thousands upon thousands of spiders, which could then form into human shape and devour people from the inside and wear their skin. And that's not as much fun as it seemed in Men in Black. In Men in Black, it was played for laughs. We had Vincent D'Onofrio. Remember that? The Kingpin was in Men in Black. Yeah, we had him doing the like, oh, I need some sugar water. We're like, that's amusing. Whereas in Garth Ennis's The Thousand, no, it's really, really creepy. But also kind of fun as well. With Garth Ennis, it's always going to be tongue-in-cheek. I don't know how you'd really do a Thousand figure, though, to be fair. It's like not an easy one to put into comic book form, or sorry, action figure form, more specifically. But it's a fun concept of a villain that we haven't had since, because he got squished at the end of the story. Although we did get a similar Spider-Man character in Spider-Geddon, I think it was, who was an evil Spider-Man who was similarly made up of tens of thousands of spiders. So you could give us that one instead, which again would just be like a lumpy Spider-Man costume. Yeah, I'm not too sure how you could do that one. I told you we were going to have some unusual or obscure characters, and Slide is one of them. Not particularly wacky or ridiculous, just not very well known. And that's probably why he's not very well known, is because he's not that wacky or ridiculous. He was just created to be like, another character. There you go. Enjoy. So it would be an easy repaint because it's pretty much just a blank body. There's a couple like this on here. You get these Spider-Man characters, either protagonists who work with him or antagonists, where even when you're reading them, you're like, man, you ain't long for this world, are you? You're going to be around for a story arc or two, and then you're going to get forgotten about because there's nothing distinctive enough about you to make other writers want to bring you back. Well, hey, look, I'm saying that now. So maybe history, hey, makes fools of us all. And I normally beat history to it. I'll do that myself. Thank you very much. So who knows? Maybe one day we might get a Slide massive story arc that puts him into the A-list of the Marvel Universe. Until then, though, I think we might be waiting a long time for an action figure. The original Beetle. Abner Jenkins was an exceptionally skilled aircraft mechanic in Baltimore who grew tired of his monotonous job and lack of recognition. Using his advanced knowledge of mechanical engineering, Jenkins designed and built a strength-enhancing armor flight suit. He adopted the identity of the Beetle to achieve fame and fortune as a criminal. He first appeared in Strange Tales 123 from 1964, battling the Human Torch and the Thing to prove himself.
He quickly became a reoccurring enemy of Spider-Man, frequently acting as a mercenary for hire and a member of supervillain teams like the Masters of Evil and the Sinister Syndicate. So of course we have an Abner Jenkins Beetle figure. It's quite old now, but I still think it holds up pretty well. But how is about the original, classic Beetle? Way more wacky and would be so fun to have. Get a little Beetle timeline going. We could have the OG, then the more classic style armor, and then Mark 1. Look at that. You got a full life story of Abner Jenkins, but you gotta start it with the original costume, with the fimbly-bimbly fingers and the more wacky sort of basket-type helmet. It looked so dumb. I'm sure even designing it at the time, they were like, this is so silly. And then they made it a little bit more badass. Kind of liked that. Even though the character never really became badass. He was always a bit of a loser. The first comic I ever read of his was where Spider-Man was chasing him down, and he wasn't even trying to fight Spider-Man. He was just desperately trying to escape. He was like, I can't be doing with this. I just got to get out of this. So that's why I got a lot of affection for the Beetle. And getting that OG look, that would tickle me. Nicholas Powell, aka Chance, was a compulsive gambler and risk-taker who craved excitement. He developed a high-tech armored combat suit to transition into a career as a super mercenary. Instead of charging a flat fee, Chance would bet his payment against his employers, betting he could complete the job. His suit featured flight-capable ankle jets, a helmet with a 360-degree infrared vision, wrist-mounted laser blasters, and concussive blasts. He is a reoccurring minor adversary to Spider-Man and has operated in the criminal underworld, often crossing paths with other mercenaries. Chance. I love the gimmick of Chance. A really fun character. A mercenary that doesn't take payment. He bets against himself. And it seems like most of the time he wins too. I'm genuinely surprised we haven't had a legend of this guy yet, because he kind of was introduced at a real pivotal or pinnacle kind of time for Spider-Man. It was right around Amazing Spider-Man 300, the introduction of Venom, Todd McFarlane doing the art duties. Like, this is a big money player. Or at least he could have been. But he wasn't really featured much after that. He has popped up over the last few years. He's not a dead character. He's still existing and doing his thing in the 616. So getting an action figure of this guy with the flight helmet, the jetpack, man, yeah, just thinking about it now, that would be really, really fun. I love the design. Little pencil mustache, bit of a Timothy Dalton Bond kind of vibe to him. Yeah, this is one that Marvel Legends, I would really love to see them tackle. I think they could do a good job with it. Killer Shrike. Before becoming a villain, Simon Maddox was a veteran of the US Army and a soldier of fortune. He was recruited by the Brand Corporation to undergo extensive surgical conditioning. These experiments granted him superhuman physical abilities and integrated technology directly into his body, including an anti-gravity generator at the base of his spine. In an early mission to Bloodstone Island, he was severely electrocuted by Ulysses Bloodstone and fell into a coma. He later awoke with amnesia and was manipulated by the Modular Man into fighting Spider-Man and the Beast. After Brand agents restored his memory, he worked as a corporate bodyguard before the company's illegal activities were exposed. He then became a freelance mercenary, often finding himself outmatched by heroes like Spider-Man, Moon Knight, and the Hulk. Killer Shrike. Shriek? I'm not sure the best way to pronounce that. I know that the shriek or the shrike is a bird, isn't it? In fact, it was featured on the Hannibal TV show. So I've heard it said many times, and I still can't remember exactly how to pronounce it. But this dude, just a fun, costumed kind of look. Got a bit of a Batman kind of aesthetic with the grays and the blacks and the yellows, but distinctive enough to not have to worry about any kind of copyright. Certainly a character that we haven't seen for decades now. I mean, maybe did he pop up during the Initiative or some kind of storyline like that would just encompass so many random D, E, and F listers? I can't remember the last time he was ever a player, but there was a time where he did get featured quite a bit. And if we are making a thorough Spider-Man timeline, especially of the late 80s, well, Killer Shrike's going to have a place for him, even if I can't remember exactly how to pronounce his name. Following Cletus Cassidy's apparent death in Venomized 2018, a cult worshipping Null recovered his body. The cult bonded Cletus with a piece of the Grendel symbiote, a massive ancient dragon-like symbiote that served Null. This resurrection, detailed in Web of Venom Carnage Born issue number 1, made Cletus more powerful than ever, allowing him to take the form of Dark Carnage. Instead of just randomly killing, this new Carnage had a focused mission: to hunt down every hero and villain who had ever bonded with a symbiote. Carnage sought to extract codices, trace remnants of symbiotes left in the spines of former hosts, in order to fully awaken Null.
It's time for another big, monstrous deluxe figure. Give us absolute carnage. I know, I'm trying not to double up on characters, but occasionally a character has a design that's so awesome, I'm willing to get another version of it, because this absolute carnage is just the most monstrous, terrifying looking version of the symbiote. It's funny because sometimes I think smaller can be scarier. Like a Velociraptor is scarier than a T-Rex because you know where a T-Rex is, where a Velociraptor could be hiding behind the corner. That was always what was cool about Carnage, was he was kind of small and impish, but having this monstrous version, you know what? Actually, sometimes bigger is bigger, and bigger is better. So this kind of, because even though he's big, he's kind of skeletal as well, got the rib cage all sticking out, he's all bony and unsettling. Really, really love this. And like a few characters on this list, I'm surprised that we've not had him yet. You know what? There's always time, Hasbro. So there you go. I, for one, would still love to see this done. He'd go so great next to Null and the other big symbiote characters. Yeah, 100%. Make it happen. Typeface. Gordon Thomas was a veteran soldier who lost his job as a signsmith and suffered a mental breakdown following the death of his brother. Adopting the name Typeface, he began a campaign of citywide vandalism, believing he was targeting the purveyors of poisonous rhetoric. He used a grease pencil to draw letters on his face, including a large red R for retribution or an A for annihilation on his forehead. He used his knowledge of sign making to create giant physical letters as weapons. He initially defeated Spider-Man during their first meeting before later becoming a disillusioned vigilante. Come on, who wouldn't want Typeface? I feel this guy is kind of like Marvel's equivalent to the Condiment Man. Just one of those, okay, you've been designed in order to be silly, but congratulations. I think the silliness kind of worked. I remember reading Typeface's first appearance, and I was like, okay, you know what? Let's go with it. Let's have some fun with this. So a guy who uses oversized letters and similar type gimmicks. It's so dumb. It's never going to be a great big pivotal Spider-Man arc that involves Typeface. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we literally never see him ever again. Might very well be Tipexed out of Marvel history. But he was around for a very short time. And anytime you want to do something kind of crazy, wacky, over the top and stupid, well, it's another reason to bring back Typeface. The Black Tarantula. The mantle of Black Tarantula is a 700-year-old tradition inherited by Carlos Lamuerto, granting him superhuman strength, speed, durability, and healing factors. The powers originate from a potion consumed by his ancestor, a European explorer who was trained by the Hand Ninja Clan, making Carlos a deathless one. Originally an adversary, Carlos came to New York to find his ex-wife Marina and son Fabian, who he was grooming to take over the mantle. After failing to force his son to take the mantle, Carlos reformed and became a powerful, albeit brutal, ally to Daredevil. Black Tarantula. I remember when this guy first got introduced and he got that big Brock Lesnar push. He was just presented as being untouchable. Just this big, badass brick wall of a character that Spider-Man had no chance against. But I did love that they gave him this sort of sense of honor as well. He had a little bit of a Bane
kind of feeling to him as well, especially because they both had that kind of South American sort of vibe going on as well. I thought the costume wasn't that exciting, just wearing black with a spider mask, but you know what? It worked. It did the job. Plus, Marvel Legends have so many big human bodies that could double up for Black Tarantula, because he's not a giant monster. He's just a big, jacked up dude. Tell you what, Age of Apocalypse Sabretooth. That would work nicely for the Black Tarantula. Plus, he doesn't just exist in Spider-Man. He's been in Daredevil and any other street-level type story arcs. It was when Daredevil was the Beast of the Hand, and he had his entourage of villains and right-hand men, and Tarantula was amongst them. So there you go, bridges the gap between your Spider-Man and your Daredevil displays. More than enough reasons to put him on your shelf. The Sin Eater. The original Marvel Sin Eater is Stanley Carter, a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and detective who became a vigilante killer after an experimental procedure caused mental instability. Believing he was punishing corrupt individuals, he targeted prominent figures, including Jean DeWolf, before being defeated by Spider-Man. The identity was later adopted by others, including Emil Gregg and a supernatural demon. The Sin Eater first appeared in Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man issue number 107 from 1985. A character who we will probably never see in action figure form, and I can understand that, is the Sin Eater. But you know what? As far as an important character in Spider-Man's history is concerned, that is kind of a big one, and it's a bit of a shame because he would be pretty easy to make. You have all the parts there already, from the frontiersman type boots and a basic body, little balaclava head, but I think it would be a tough sell to put this dude on toy shelves. But it is a big-time Spider-Man character who has had long-term ramifications that still get echoed in Spider-Man stories. The death of Jean DeWolf was a huge, big timeline milestone in the life of Peter Parker. So it would be cool to have the characters that represent that arc. But yeah, as I said before, not the most comic booky, fun, toyetic type of villain. So he'll probably remain just in the comic book pages. The Foreigner. The Foreigner's true name and full background are unknown, intentionally making him an enigma, with Basil being one of his oldest known aliases. He is a master assassin who runs an organization of killers, often operating for business rather than pure villainy. While lacking superhuman strength, he has redefined his mind to achieve a hypnotic blackout, allowing him to mesmerize people with eye contact for about 10 seconds, making him appear faster than he really is. He is a peak human-conditioned martial artist, tactical expert, and master of disguise. He married Silver Sable, training her while working as a freelance spy. Despite their divorce, they maintain a semi-serious rivalry, trying to assassinate each other regularly. He also had a brief romantic relationship with Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat. The Foreigner. He wants to know what love is. He wants you to show him. If anyone gets that reference, then can of coke to you, 80s kid. But The Foreigner, someone who I don't think we've seen for donkey's years? What is that expression? Either way, it would take a lot of donkeys' lifetimes to add up to the amount of time it's been since we saw The Foreigner on our comic book pages. But there was a time in the early 90s where he did feature quite prominently in quite a few stories. Plus, he has the essential thing for anybody who wants to feature on this list and get themselves immortalized in plastic. He has a proper superhero costume. And occasionally, when the storylines might be forgotten to time, a good-looking superhero design, that's gonna last. And honestly, it's not the most amazing design, but it's a design nonetheless, and it would look pretty good in Marvel Legends form. Gog, an immense alien semi-reptilian creature from a distant planet in the Milky Way galaxy, first debuted in Amazing Spider-Man 103 from 1971. Born in a highly immature state, he was raised in an incubator, programmed with knowledge and equipped with teleportation wristbands, later becoming stranded in the Savage Land. He is an enormous anthropoid with reptilian and mammalian traits, possessing immense strength, able to swat away the Hulk, and durability. He uses sonically generated anti-gravitrons to support his weight, and his wristbands allow him to teleport himself and others across space. Initially found by Kraven the Hunter in the Savage Land, Gog was used as a pawn before battling Spider-Man and eventually becoming a gentle guardian of Kazar's son.
Gog. This would be a whole lot of fun. It would definitely need to be a deluxe figure. You could go super gigantic with it and make it a full-on HasLab, but come on, you'd be better off doing the big wheel if you were going to go that route. I don't think there would be that many people who would be willing to drop a couple of $100 on a Gog figure, especially when he does appear in a much, much smaller, more manageable form. But the cute little house pet of Spider-Man and Boomerang, what a fun, ridiculous little companion you could have for these guys. It was definitely a moment in time. Now that I mentioned Boomerang, he's not on this list because we do have a Boomerang figure, but it is the modern Boomerang. Old school classic Boomerang? I'd kind of like to see that, but we're not talking about him. We're talking about the two housemates' fun little monster pet that they had. And a cute, adorable little Gog. You could put him next to Jeff the Land Shark, get a little pet Avengers going on. Yeah. I would actually really like that. Overdrive. James Beverly was a race car driver and a massive superhero fanboy who desperately wanted to be a hero himself. After failing to gain powers through conventional means, he accepted an offer from crime boss Mr. Negative, who used nanotechnology to give him abilities. Overdrive's plan was to become a villain first, gain a reputation, and then eventually reform to be welcomed onto a superhero team like the Avengers. Speaking of Boomerang, as I was so briefly, someone else who was a buddy of his from the Superior Foes of Spider-Man was Overdrive. And Overdrive, no hint of a Marvel legend for him, which is kind of crazy considering that we've got all the other Superior Foes of Spider-Man. Lady Beetle, Shocker, Speed Demon, they're all there except for Speed Demon. And what's up with that? Yes, his power is a bit wacky and ridiculous, being able to, soup up any kind of vehicle. How does that power even manifest itself? I don't know, I'm probably reading too much into it. Interestingly, Marvel Legends, the team did make an Overdrive figure, but it was likely just as part of a display for a San Diego Comic-Con diorama they had set up. It was a repainted Star-Lord body with a different head. But to actually get this guy as an action figure, it would be a team completionist figure. And that counts for a lot. Even if it's a D-list team like the Superior Foes of Spider-Man, it would still be another one you could tick off the list. The Living Brain, an advanced mobile computer created by Dr. Petty to be the world's most intelligent, adaptive AI. Originally debuting in Amazing Spider-Man number 8 from 1964, it went on a rampage at Midtown High after being damaged by workers who were trying to steal it, leading to its first battle with Spider-Man. It was designed as a laboratory tool to solve complex equations and assist in experiments. During a demonstration at Peter Parker's school, disgruntled workers tried to steal the machine, causing a scramble that damaged its control panel and triggered its combat/rampaging mode. Why would it have a combat rampaging mode? Spider-Man defeated it by damaging the control panel. Later stories featured it as a reassembled tool and eventually an assistant at Horizon Labs, noticeably used by the Superior Spider-Man. It possesses rapid learning, adaptation abilities, and immense analytic processing powers. The Living Brain. I love this wacky robot dude. I didn't get introduced to the character until the Superior Spider-Man run. And then I realized, oh wow, there's a whole lot of lineage with this little robot. It's really, really fun. So for me, I know him as being the robot that Otto Octavius downloaded his mind into that allowed him to survive after the Superior Spider-Man arc. That was great stuff. And just this big, clunky, very 1950s sort of design. I really, really dig that. It's very fun and kitsch. And for me, that sort of fits, especially with the classic sort of Spider-Man aesthetic. Having this dude to pair up alongside your superior Spider-Man, a little double act going on. Because if I recall correctly, when Otto does come back to life, he's got a cloned body that he can download his consciousness back into. He keeps the robot as just a little robot companion servant type guy. And the two of them, they're America's favorite odd couple. Or at least they were my favorite odd couple for the couple of issues that it lasted for.
Kindred, a demonic entity revealed to be the deceased Harry Osborn, who sold his soul to hell in order to return to life, driven by intense hatred for Peter Parker. Operating from a realm of torment, he is empowered by the lingering consequences of the One More Day storyline, seeking revenge for his father's sins and Peter's perceived failures. Harry Osborn, operating with the knowledge of his past life as the Green Goblin and his death, became this demonic entity known as the Pitiful One. Kindred blames Peter Parker for all the misery in his life, including his drug addiction, mental instability, and eventual death, viewing Peter as a source of misfortune. Kindred is a prisoner from hell who rose to become a demon, allowing him to resurrect dead Spider-Man villains like Sin Eater and Mysterio. In One More Day, Kindred acts as a consequence of the deal of Mephisto, often referencing the sins of Peter's past. Often accompanied by centipedes and insects, he utilizes a grotesque, nightmarish form embodying his rage against his best friend. Where do I even start with Kindred? I don't know if I could tell you his origin or the full story of him if you put me on the spot, which is what I'm doing to myself right now. And guess what? I can't. He's sort of Harry Osborn and also the Goblin children, or one of the Goblin children, but not. And Mephisto's in there somewhere, and so is Mysterio, I think. Oh, there was so much going on there. But what Kindred did, the whole point of that character, was to undo just one story. And honestly, it was worth it. After all was said and done, the bottom line was that Gwen Stacy never slept with Norman Osborn, and she didn't give birth to his Goblin twins. I don't care how long it took to get there, but we finally got there. That Goblin story is no longer canon. Thank you, Mysterio, for hypnotizing everyone. It was all a dream. That's good enough for me. Still don't know exactly how Kindred fits into it, but the design of Kindred is very cool. So I would like it if we get that character back in the comics, maybe without a mystical, demonic kind of twist. Maybe just someone wears that costume. Because it's great with the skull face, the bandages, the cloak, the centipedes. It looks wicked. I'd love to see more of that guy. Even if, for the life of me, I can't remember what the heck his origin story is. The Jester, Jonathan Powers, a bitter actor who was jeered off stage during a Cyrano de Bergerac performance. After failing in mainstream acting, he took up gymnastics and fencing, eventually working in children's television where he was humiliated by having pies thrown at him. He used his theatrical skills and hired the Tinkerer to create weaponized toys to gain the fame he failed to achieve legitimately. While he has no superpowers, he's an expert in hand-to-hand combat, acrobatics, and acting. He uses joke-themed items including explosive yo-yos, marble shooters, flying robots, and trick guns. Primarily known as a villainous foe to Daredevil, he is also tangled with Spider-Man on many occasions. Here's a classic old character, the Jester. This one, I think, would fit a lot of different displays. He's right up there with your D-list characters. But he has been around for a long, long time, and he would stand shoulder to shoulder with guys like Jack-o'-lantern and the sort of slightly spooky, scary, but also sort of goofy type villains. Daredevil has had so many run-ins with this guy, maybe more so than Spider-Man, possibly. But he has the really fun Jester toy type gimmicks. A bit of an offshoot of like Marvel's version of the Joker.
but not half as scary. But still, like, he packs a punch. And just having that great kind of Harlequin jester type outfit, that would be really fun on the shelves. Yeah, add him to your D-level street crime type characters. Have Punisher just pop a cap in him. Perfect use for the jester. The 90s Jackal. Miles Warren is a Spider-Man villain and mad scientist who originated from the grief-driven insanity of a geneticist obsessed with Gwen Stacy. After she died, Warren blamed Spider-Man and adopted the Jackal persona and utilized advanced cloning technology, often splicing his own DNA with that of a Jackal. A huge one for me right here. 90s Jackal. I know, I'm trying not to do too many doubles of characters. We do have a classic Jackal, but man, that's not my Jackal. Where's my 90s Matrix trench coat Jackal? And to be fair, that came out quite a few years before the Matrix did. The Jackal was rocking the black and the trench coat. Then again, the Crow got there first. But 90s Jackal, the mastermind of the Clone Saga, before it was revealed to be Norman Osborn, I'd love to see that. The biggest criticism that the character got was that he was pretty much just the Joker, but green and furry. But I don't mind about that. He was a great antagonist to build the entire Clone Saga around. And the look of the character was just kind of cool. I really, really dug it. So getting this dude in full-on 90s style form, oh, that would be amazing. And if we got him, there's only one more essential Clone Saga character we would still need. Spider-Side, a powerful Peter Parker clone created by the Jackal during the 90s Clone Saga, first appearing in Spectacular Spider-Man 222. Engineered to be the ultimate spider killer, he was designed with enhanced abilities, including shape-shifting and mass manipulation, to eliminate Spider-Man and his other clones, Ben Reilly and Kane. The Jackal designed Spider-Side to reflect what he believed humanity might become after 10,000 years of evolution, creating a clone stronger and more versatile than Spider-Man. Along with standard spider abilities, Spider-Side can shapeshift his molecular density, stretch his limbs, create blade-like weapons, and grow in size. He was a key antagonist who initially thought he was the original Peter Parker. After realizing he was a clone, he embraced his role as an enemy to humanity. Unlike other clones, Spider-Side was designed for and tasked with killing Peter Parker, Mary Jane Watson, and all other Spider clones. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, and I will keep saying it until it happens. Give me Spider-Side or give me death. We have all the other Parker brothers. We got Peter, we got Ben, we got Kane. Where, oh where, Marvel Legends, is Spider-Side? We need the psychotic, morphing monster version of Peter Parker. Such a cool costume design. I think it's cool. Other people might disagree. I love the inverted classic Spider-Man design. The red is the blue and the blue is the red. And then he's a roidy Magoo jacked up to monstrous proportions with the face incorporated into the mask, which looks really weird. And then just funny kind of boots because what the heck, it was the 90s. I dig it. And I dug it even more when they actually brought him back for the Ben Reilly miniseries that takes place shortly after the Clone Saga. Because that was one problem I always had with how Spider-Side was written out of the Clone Saga, was that he fell off a building. But it's like, the dude is a metamorph. He can literally turn himself into liquid. Falling off a building is not going to be a problem for him. So then in the sequel, yeah, he comes back and causes more trouble. And it's great. So give us a Spider-Side figure with morphing hands, a big hammer, a scythe, make him look wicked and terrifying. I'm still waiting, and I do feel it's inevitable. But boy, the wait is long. Screwball, a supervillain and the first live streaming internet personality villain. Created by Dan Slott and Marcos Martin, she first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 559 from 2008. She is an immoral, agile, high-tech prankster who commits crimes and traps heroes, specifically Spider-Man, in order to gain viral fame and millions of online views.
Screwball's true identity is unknown, but she is a self-proclaimed performance artist and social media influencer. She is not driven by money or traditional villainy, but solely the pursuit of likes, shares, and viewers. She is a highly athletic parkour expert, skilled in technological prankerism, and uses her fans, aka henchmen, to commit crimes. She often forces Spider-Man to participate in her live-streamed challenges, such as rescuing civilians from staged bomb threats, and is frequently arrested, only to return for more followers. She's notable for her purple and yellow jester-themed outfit. And while appearing as a frequent menace in the comics, she is widely known for her role in the Marvel's Spider-Man game series, where she orchestrates elaborate urban challenges for the hero while streaming. A character derided by many, but loved by some. And by some, I mean one, me, I love her. Screwball, part of Brand New Day. So hey, look, Brand New Day is big, okay? Brand New Day is what all the kids are talking about right now. So let's get some Brand New Day characters, including Screwball. I love the gimmick that she's a streamer. This was actually quite on the ball back in, 2008, 2009, when Screwball first appeared, doing a live streaming villain. That's pretty up to date. So yeah, she was a parkour problem for Peter Parker. And she was very much D-list, not a big threat, but an interesting character to have out there. Fun look as well, with the pink and the white and the kind of extreme sports sort of look to her. I mean, she even featured in Sony's Spider-Man. Yes, a lot of her challenges were incredibly annoying if you were trying to get the platinum, which I did. But man, I had to work for it. But even though I have a lot of frustration with that character because of that game, I still like the look of her, and I'd love to get an action figure. Freak. Created by Bob Gale and Phil Jimenez in Amazing Spider-Man 552, this freak was a homeless drug addict. While hiding in Dr. Kurt Connor's lab, he mistook experimental animal gene stem fluids for drugs and injected them, transforming into a monstrous, skinless creature. This version possesses mutative regeneration, or adaptive physiology. Whenever he is killed, his body forms a chrysalis and he resurrects with mutations that make him immune to what killed him previously. For example, becoming fireproof after burning or bulletproof after being shot. The freak's body adapted to his drug addiction by removing the pleasure center of his brain, making him incapable of getting high. The ultimate irony for this character. And speaking of Brand New Day characters, yes, Freak. One of those ones that would actually be really hard to do as an action figure, because what look do you do? Because he literally looks different every time you see him. The whole power concept is that he changes and morphs depending on whatever he's been battered with. So his body adapts, kind of like Darwin. But at least Darwin, with the X-Men, Darwin had his go-to version. Kind of like the T-1000. He always became Robert Patrick. Whereas with Freak, he's always just transforming into a different type of monster, whether it's like a rat kind of thing or a amphibious mutant. So who knows? But because of that, Marvel Legends, you could go nuts with it. Then again, his whole backstory of like the contraband, and like, I don't want to say words that'll get this video demonetized, but yeah, he's got a salty backstory. So you could give him some real freaky extras if you wanted to. But basically, it would be a fun monstrous figure, but I don't see it happening. Scorcher. The primary Marvel Comics Scorcher is Stephen Hudak, a villain and occasional mercenary, created by Kurt Busiek and artist Pat Olive, who first appeared in Untold Tales of Spider-Man issue number 1 from September of 1995. Stephen Hudak was a research chemist who worked at a company called Maypro Industries. He was wrongly accused of embezzlement, which resulted in him losing his job and having his life ruined. Vowing revenge on his former employers, Hudak utilized his scientific skills to design and construct an armored suit equipped with wrist-mounted flamethrowers. He adopted the alias Scorcher and attacked his former workplace, but was ultimately thwarted by Spider-Man.
Scorcher has three big things going for him. First of all, he's an old school 1960s type character, even though he's not a 1960s character. Being Untold Tales of Spider-Man that he first appeared in, that was the 90s, but it's set in the 60s type era, so you get the best of both worlds. Then he's a flame boy, and you gotta love your flamey action figures, because if it's done right, that means we should have some really fun fire accessories to go with him. And then finally, he's got the old Mysterio-style fish bowl. We got there eventually. He's got the old fishbowl type head, mask, helmet. Wow, words are hard for this entry. I'm not going to redo it though. We're rolling, baby. We're almost at the 100 mark, so I'm going to keep on pushing through. But yeah, old school character, but with a new school type of style, with fire effects and a fishbowl helmet. That's good enough for me. Shathra, a supernatural spider-wasp totem and ancient predator who hunts spider totems. First appearing in Amazing Spider-Man 46 from 2002 by J. Michael Straczynski and John Romita Jr. She is a mystical entity representing the natural wasp predator, driven by jealousy to destroy Spider-Man, whom she considers her rightful prey. She is a goddess from a different reality/dimension who once competed with her sister Neith to create existence. While Neith's fluid design became the Great Web, Shathra's rigid great nest was rejected, causing her to turn into a monstrous wasp goddess driven by spite. Shathra preys upon spider totems across the multiverse, intending to erase them and replace the web of life and destiny with her own nest. Her goal is to consume Spider-Man, both physically and spiritually, in order to cement her dominance. Shathra, a big bad A-list type villain for Spider-Man, even though it's one who I don't think is really going to stand the test of time when it comes to all-time classic Spider-Man villains. She was big for like one story, maybe arguably two stories, and that was it. Because you can't really do too much with a character like this, because it's not like she's brimming with personality. It's just a big monstrous totem type thing that is going to be a huge threat until it's dealt with. And then it is, and we can all move on with our lives. But for the time that she was around, there were some big storylines based around that, because she was like this ultimate big bad for Spider-Man. I mean, it's like, I wasn't a big fan of doing the whole nature, totem, predator, prey, spider, cam. It was a lot. It was a lot, but we did have some cool moments in there. And if we don't get an Ezekiel figure, which I don't think we will do, we can at least get the big bad that story was all about, and that was Shathra. And if they went all in with doing a big monstrous spider-wasp type creation, well, that would look pretty wicked. Batwing. Jimmy Santini, a young boy who accompanied his father to investigate illegal waste dumping on Carlsbad Caverns. His father was killed, and while lost, Jimmy drank chemically polluted water, causing him to mutate, growing wings and taking on a bat-like appearance. Shunned by his mother, he hid under a pier in New York, stealing food from rooftops. The press dubbed him Batwing. He appeared in Spider-Man stories where he battled and later befriended the web-slinger. Spider-Man tried to get him help from Dr. Kirk Connors in order to cure his condition. Later, he and his friend Butterball would go on to become heroes when they joined the Avengers Academy. Batwing. You could pretty much just buy a Batwing figure now, just get the McFarlane Man-Bat figure, because first of all, that is amazing. And secondly, yeah, it's just a giant bat character. But I like to go outside the box with some of these. Untold Tales of Spider-Man was a real fun series in the mid-90s, going back to Peter's early days and kind of keeping that 60s aesthetic, but with some more modern flair. And we got Batwing. I don't think he has ever been seen since. But I think that's kind of a shame, because Spider-Man is great with his animal-themed villains. A lizard, rhino, Doc Ock, kind of. But a bat-themed one? I guess maybe they thought, you know what, this is too much like Man-Bat. We don't want to be doubling up with DC that obviously. But for the short time he was there, I thought he was a great antagonist for Spider-Man. The Vulture as well. There you go. That's another straight-up comparison. So I'm interested to see when I do my research. Yeah, I will do some, I promise. If he actually does have an appearance beyond Untold Tales. But even if it was one and done, that's still good enough for me.
The Slingers. The Slingers are a Marvel Comics superhero team that debuted in 1998, originating from the Identity Crisis storyline where Spider-Man was framed for murder and could not operate as himself. The 4 identities that Spider-Man briefly adopted, Dusk, Hornet, Prodigy, and Ricochet, were later adopted by 4 teenagers brought together by the Golden Age hero Black Marvel, who made a Faustian deal with the demon Mephisto in order to acquire the costumes and their powers.
The Slingers, all 4 of these guys. I'm amazed we haven't got a single one of these yet, because all of the costumes are really fun. As a little storytelling gimmick, it was kind of throwaway in the Spider-Man comics. Just, oh, Peter needs some different identities, so there you go, have a couple of new costumes. But all of them had their own gimmick, their own style. They were all quite unique. They could stand on their own as individual heroes, which I guess was the plan all along. They probably thought to themselves, you know what, let's make a thing out of this. And they did. It didn't really make sense storyline-wise. Spider-Man was wanted for murder, so Peter couldn't go out as Spider-Man, so he had to make another identity. Don't know why he had to make 4 identities. That's kind of making more work for yourself. But then we got the Slingers, which also had one of the worst gimmicks that Marvel ever did. For Slingers issue number 1, get this, in case you didn't know. They did 4 versions of issue number 1. Each of them had the same middle. But then depending on which one you got a different opening and closing, depending on which character you wanted to see. So if you wanted to see like the actual full story for all 4 characters, you needed to buy all 4 different issues. That sucks. Marvel, I know they were desperate for money in the mid to late 90s, but that was pretty darn bad. And you know what? Stopped me from buying the series altogether. I was like, well, if I can't get the full story in one comic, I'm not going to buy 4 just to do it. You know what? I'm out. I think a lot of people thought that because the Slingers, they didn't last for long. But for a while, for the time that they were there, we got some good costumes.
Stegron. Vincent Stegron worked as an assistant to Dr. Kirk Connors, studying dinosaur DNA for a SHIELD project. Inspired by Connor's lizard transformation, Stegron used a combined formula of dinosaur DNA and the lizard formula to mutate himself into a creature with spikes, scales, and superhuman strength. Stegron fled to the Savage Land, where he became obsessed with bringing back dinosaurs to dominate society. He first appeared as a Spider-Man villain in Marvel Team-Up 19 from 1974, created by Jerry Conway and Ross Andru.
Stegron. Dude, come on. How have we not had Stegron yet? A big, giant, jacked up dinosaur man. This thing sells itself. Even if a kid has never read a comic book in their lives, they walk into a toy store, they're going to be like, Mummy, get me that giant dinosaur man, please and thank you. I assume that's how kids talk. I don't know. But yeah, give us a Stegron. It would be so fun to have on the shelf. Plus, he's not just exclusively Spider-Man. Stegron has dabbled with different characters before. We actually have an old school Toy Biz Stegron from their Vault line of figures, which was actually really well made. It was a classic from back in the day. But giving us a giant, jacked up deluxe version, absolutely, that's one of those classic take my money type figures. That would be an instant day one pre-order.
Hubert Carpenter was a dim-witted New York City cab driver who lived with his uncle Humbert, a mad scientist. Humbert used an experimental technology to alter Hubert, giving him the proportionate speed, strength, and agility of a walrus. He possesses superhuman strength, endurance, and a layer of blubber that allows him to survive in freezing water, though he rarely operates near water. He considers himself a mass destructionist, though he's generally incompetent and often used for comic relief, frequently teaming up with the White Rabbit.
All right. Now hear me out here, okay? Hear me out.
In fact, no, I don't need to justify this.
Look at this guy. Walrus. Why wouldn't you want this? Look, we've got Razorback. We've got the Grizzly. Getting a walrus is not outside the realms of possibility. I just want all the animal-themed villains. I want the Amazing Zoo crew. I want anyone who has a ridiculous costume, anyone who you would look at and go, state of your costume, mate. That's who I want on my shelf. Spare me your badass ninjas and your cyber robots. Nah, I want a grown-ass man in a walrus costume. If I can't have that, then what are we even doing here? Huh? Why are we even here if we can't have the walrus? Yeah, Marvel Legends, stop what you're doing. Get to work on this guy.
The Wall. Joshua Waddlemere originated in Spidey Super Stories number 8 as a teenager working at a construction site. After a construction explosion caused a brick wall to collapse on him, Waddlemere was transformed into a living, sentient brick wall, leading him to become a supervillain. His first and most notable appearance was in the children-focused Spidey Super Stories, published in 1975, designed to be easy for children to read. He fights Spider-Man at a baseball field, but is eventually talked down. He is often considered one of Spider-Man's craziest and most absurd villains.
In the words of Tony Schiavone from the dying days of WCW, it's the Wall. It's the Wall. It's a man made out of bricks, or a brick that became a man. I don't know. But it's the Wall. One of the wackiest, most ridiculous characters that was ever created. Not in official 616 continuity. I'm pretty sure. Stop me if I'm wrong. I will do the research, but this is one of those Spider-Man cartoon offshoot Timely Comics type things. It's not 616 canon. I don't think we have the Wall there. He didn't team up with the Avengers or battle the X-Men at any point. I don't think. But you know what? Even if he didn't, even if he was part of like the Electric Company, that's what I was trying to think of. Even if he was just an Electric Company type creation for a wacky one-shot, one-page story, whatever it was, that's good enough for me, because as a legend, the Wall has stood the test of time. Must have been a pretty well-made wall. And for that, I would happily see a Marvel Legend of him, even if it's just me that would buy him.
She-Venom, aka the Bride of Venom. Anne Weying first appeared as her normal human self in Amazing Spider-Man 375 from 1993, before becoming bonded with the Venom symbiote in Venom Sinner Takes All, issue number 2, 1995. After being shot by the villain Sin Eater, Anne Weying is close to death. To save her, Eddie Brock allowed the Venom symbiote to temporarily bond with her. The symbiote healed her wounds, but also transformed her into She-Venom, a feminine version of the creature. In this state, she brutally attacked those responsible for her shooting. Anne was horrified by the violence she committed while bonded, leading to extreme psychological trauma. Another character that baffles me by her absence, She-Venom. Anne Weying with the symbiote. Oh my goodness. As a teenager growing up in the 90s, that She-Venom cover, be still my beating heart. There was something awoken that day. I'm not sure what it was exactly, but it was awoken. So getting an Anne Weying She-Venom, yeah, I'm a simple creature. I don't think that Marvel Legends would go too over the top with the design, but it'd be a lot cooler if they did. But just the basic female body, just with the black symbiote paint and then an awesome, huge, toothy She-Venom face. I mean, what would be amazing would to actually have the human face as well with the symbiote wrapping around like we got with Eddie Brock. That would be amazing. But even just full-on She-Venom, huge big claws. You wonder where I was going with that. Just the big claws is what we need. I would love it. And now that I'm mentioning it, just throw in
all the other Life Foundation characters as well. We need new versions, all right? Scream, she's way out of date. Give us a better version of Poison. Just give us all of those Life Foundation symbiotes, but not before you give us She-Venom. Because pubescent 1990s childhood Dave, yeah, he'd be very grateful for that.
Silence. Following the death of the Scream symbiote during the Extreme Carnage storyline, Dr. Steven harvested samples from Andy Benton's skin and blood. Dr. Steven combined these Scream samples with the anti-venom serum to create a new hybrid symbiote. When mortally wounded by the symbiote Phage, this new creature bonded with Andy to save her life. The symbiote dubbed itself Silence, viewing itself to be the absence of Scream. Silence possesses the ability to disconnect other symbiotes from the hive mind, using a cleansing touch similar to anti-venom.
Speaking of Scream, we have Silence, the dumbest rebranding of a character that I've seen for a while. I don't want to be Johnny Hater over here, but I'm going to be Johnny Hater over here. There was nothing wrong with the Scream design. It was cool, and every time that it seemed to appear in comics, it got better. I thought the Scream design just got more intricate with the hair and the skeletal kind of face, and just everything about it just looked wicked. And then they had a character change where it goes from red and yellow to red and white. And now she's not Scream. Now she's Silence. I don't know. It seems like a bit of a pointless makeover, but hey, it was a makeover nonetheless. And it gives Marvel Legends another chance to give us another version of Scream, or Silence in this case. Like I said on the previous entry, the Scream figure is out of date, so we need some sort of update. I'd prefer a classic Scream, but if you want to insist on doing something different, well, the Silence design is right there. The Sleeper symbiote, the seventh spawn of the Venom symbiote. Its origin is defined by a nurtured upbringing, distinguishing it from its more violent siblings like Toxin and Carnage. Spawned after Venom was cleansed by the Clintar, the pregnancy was difficult and secret. Venom and Eddie Brock left it in the care of Alchemax's astrobiology lab to prevent it from being corrupted by bonding with a host too early. It was raised by Venom and Dr. Steven, resulting in a confident and loyal personality. Unlike others, it can create chemicals such as acids and aerosols for defense and manipulation. It bonded with Eddie Brock to prevent the Kree soldier Telkar from using a bioweapon. Eventually, it lobotomized Telkar to use his body to explore the universe. It has since acted as a guardian for Eddie Brock's son, Dylan Brock, and has bonded with characters like Rick Jones and an adorable kitty cat. Sleeper, one of my favorite new symbiote characters. Been around for a few years now, so I feel it's due. It's time to get the Sleeper symbiote. We've had a few different designs of Sleeper throughout the years, but the initial version I thought looked great. A big hulking type of version of a symbiote. So you'd want one of the beefier bodies to put this on, but then the cool kind of gas mask look to the face, and then just the wonderful black and green color combination, I think just looked really, really nice. But if you were doing a Sleeper, what you absolutely have to do is include Sleeper Cat. That as a separate little accessory. I know that technically if one is in one form, then it wouldn't be in the other form. I don't care. I'll allow it. Because you're not going to give us a Sleeper Cat on their own, but doing Sleeper as an accessory, that would be great. Who wouldn't want an adorable six-eyed symbiote kitty cat? I can't imagine. People who don't like fun is the answer to that one. So with that in mind, yeah, absolutely. A big deluxe Sleeper with a little Sleeper kitty to come with him. That would be awesome. The Wraith. Introduced in The Amazing Spider-Man 600 from July 2009 and becoming The Wraith in Amazing Spider-Man 663 in June 2011, Yuri Watanabe is a New York City police captain who became disillusioned with the justice system's inability to stop criminals. After witnessing criminals walk free due to corruption and seeing her colleagues killed, Yuri took a leave of absence to fight crime as a brutal vigilante.
She uses confiscated technology from Spider-Man villains, specifically Chameleon and Mysterio, to create her costume and gear, often using a mask to look like the deceased detective Jean DeWolf to strike fear into villains. She has no superpowers, but is a skilled fighter and detective, utilizing advanced tech, fear gas, and elastic straps to trap criminals. Her path to becoming a lethal anti-hero accelerated after being set up by Mr. Negative, leading her to decide she would kill criminals rather than arresting them.
The Wraith. Yeah, Yuri Watanabe. Just like a previous character, Screwball. I couldn't remember who it was. Just like Screwball, a character who appeared in Sony's Spider-Man video game that we don't have in action figure form yet, but it would be cool if we did, not just because she has some decent lineage in the comics and the games now, but also her costume just looks really cool. The royal kind of purple with the gold trim. It's a nice combo right there. And then the fact that she just looks like a badass ninja, and she's got the fun kind of swirly ribbon type gimmicks to make the character stand out on the shelf more, give you more sort of dynamic posing options. That'd be great. Peter doesn't have that many allies in the police force. So having Yuri Watanabe there in this version of her superhero, or not even a superhero, really, she's kind of a dark Avenger type of character. Like, not as brutal as the Punisher, but also not as kind as Spider-Man. Kind of walking that fine line between hero and anti-hero. That makes it real interesting. And for that, absolutely justifies a figure. Sticks and Stone, a villainous mercenary duo primarily the foes of Spider-Man and consisting of Jacob Eichhorn, Sticks, and Gerald Stone. They first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man 309 from 1988, and they were created by David Michelinie and Todd McFarlane. Gerald Stone was an ambitious biotechnician working for a medical research firm whose aim was to cure cancer. He authorized experiments on homeless people to test a theory that humans could develop immunity to cancer through controlled exposure. Jacob Eichhorn, a homeless man, volunteered for the trials. Stone injected him with a mutated cancer compound. Instead of curing him, it turned Eichhorn into a living cancer, giving him the ability to kill organic matter with a single touch. Following the transformation, Eichhorn became mentally unstable and obsessed with death, adopting the name Sticks. Guilt-ridden by the result of his experiment, Stone dedicated himself to finding a cure for Sticks. They became mercenaries to fund his research, with Stone developing specialized high-tech weapons to protect his partner and help them fight. Two absolute classics from the 90s, Sticks and Stone. I love villain combos, partnerships, because why wouldn't you have partnerships if you're a villain in the Marvel universe? You're going to want someone to give you a little bit of backup. And Sticks and Stone, first of all, you know that they came up with the name Sticks and Stone and then went, okay, how would this work? Who would be the Stone? Who would be the Sticks? What's the design going to be? And you know what? It works. It works real well. I love the character of Sticks, just this death touch. Real creepy. And the character has had a few different design modifications over the years, but going back to the old school, early 90s Eric Larson style, put him in a 2-pack with the little sky sled that they ride around in, give Stone the big shoulder-mounted cannons and lasers. Such toyetic fun could be had with this. Great obscure additions to a Spider-Man display that, as obscure as they are, would still be a day one purchase for this guy. Delilah, a highly skilled assassin in Marvel Comics, best known as a foe of Spider-Man and an employee of the crime lord Rose. She is a professional assassin and mercenary who appeared during gang wars in the Amazing Spider-Man series of the late 1990s. She worked for the new Rose, Jacob Conover, acting as his muscle. She first clashed with Spider-Man while trying to assassinate the husband of a woman named Shirley, and later was present during the resurrection of Dr. Octopus. She's described as a cold, dangerous figure with specialized martial arts skills, who's a genuine challenge for any natural human fighter. Another classic from the Clone Saga, or less so the Clone Saga than the Ben Reilly Spider-Man saga. We've got Delilah. And Delilah, you could pose her right next to the Rose. She was the Rose's backup during his whatever number bid it was to become the crime lord of New York. And even though the Rose ultimately didn't succeed, Delilah, it was no fault of hers because she was a wicked character. I think she came out, she came out just before China rose to prominence in WWE, but she definitely was kind of a precursor to the big jacked up muscle lady. It's funny because when she was first designed, I think by Mark Bagley, she was more of just a classic ninja type lady. And then Steve Scrose took over the art duties on Amazing Spider-Man, and he was like, what if we make a super jacked up muscle mummy? I think people weren't even talking about the term muscle mummy back in the mid-90s. But guess what? Steve Scrose, he's a visionary. So he just packed on about 50 pounds of lean muscle to the character, and she just looked awesome, would give Spider-Man a serious run for his money. And it's a real shame that she's not really featured in the comics ever since the Clone Saga. That's one character I would love to see make a comeback. And I'd love even more to get her on my toy shelf.
The Cyber Hobgoblin. Jason Macendale Jr. was a mercenary and the second major Hobgoblin, having taken over from Roderick Kingsley. After failing to replicate the strength of the original Green Goblin and losing his demonic powers, Macendale sought to regain his edge. Seeking more power, Macendale modified his body with cybernetic implants to boost his physical abilities. Despite these enhancements, however, Macendale was considered a failure by the original Hobgoblin Roderick Kingsley, who returned from retirement to kill Macendale and reclaim the mantle.
All right. I think this is the last Clone Saga character, all right? Cyber Hobgoblin. I was saying before, you can't have too many goblins. This version of the Hobgoblin is just a whole lot of fun. It's the Hobgoblin, but with a whole bunch of cybernetic parts on him. Well, that's a good time. He doesn't come in the comics with a glider, though. I don't think. No, he does. But in his initial appearance, he just kind of floated around and sliced Ben Reilly to pieces. Don't worry, he walked it off. But yeah, I think in his second appearance, he has his classic glider. But yeah, funnily enough, Hobgoblin was super OP when he first appeared as the Cyber Hobgoblin. Just absolutely battered Ben Reilly, but then Ben just kind of licked his wounds, came back and gave him a whooping. So, I guess they're one apiece. So I'm saying, comic book writers, 35 years later, we need the rematch. But getting a Cyber Hobgoblin action figure, yeah, that would be an awesome addition to what would be, by my number of requests, a pretty massive Goblin display.
Coldheart. Created by Howard Mackie and Tom Lyle, she debuted in Spider-Man number 49 in 1994. She's a minor antagonist primarily known as a foe of Spider-Man whose origins are rooted in trauma, grief, and a vendetta against superheroes. Coldheart was a former operative for a government agency who turned to vigilantism after her young son Joey was killed in a fight between a superhero and a villain. Consumed by grief and insanity, Coldheart blamed superheroes for her son's death, believing them to be reckless individuals who act for glory regardless of civilian casualties. Traumatized by her loss, she was deemed unfit for service, but stole her advanced armored suit and cryokinetic swords from her former employers to embark on a crusade to kill costumed criminals and heroes alike.
A real old school 90s deep cut character. We've got Coldheart, who I don't think has appeared since those initial appearances. She might have. Again, once I'm doing all this edit, I'm looking up the pictures, I'm getting the backstories. Maybe she featured super prominently, if it was going to be anywhere. I'm guessing maybe during the Initiative storyline. I could imagine Coldheart popping up randomly in one of Iron Man's Avengers Initiative campuses. But besides that, the initial appearance, pretty cool. Just badass lady with a couple of swords that freeze whatever they touch. I'm down for that. You could pair her up with the armored Daredevil, Spider-Man at the time, Hobgoblin, a whole bunch of other early 90s staples. She'll fit right in and look wicked doing it.
In Marvel Comics, the Ringer is a persona used by several minor supervillains, most notably Anthony Tony Davis. He was created by David Kraft, Keith Giffen, and Klaus Janson, first appearing in Defenders number 51 from 1977. He is typically depicted as a low-level criminal, wearing armor equipped with specialized ring-based weaponry. Anthony Davis was a skilled inventor and NASA engineer who grew jealous of the wealth of Kyle Richmond, aka Nighthawk. He designed a suit of battle armor featuring ring-based weapons to initiate a life of crime. He was easily defeated by Nighthawk, who broke Davis's teeth during their fight. Later, he moved to the Midwest to escape heroes, but was killed by the Scourge of the Underworld at the bar with no name. It was later revealed that AIM agents found him barely alive and converted him into a cyborg named Strikeback. You know, you might think that characters like Paste Pot Pete stand alone as classic rubbish Spider-Man villains. Well, leave some room for the Ringer. What does he do? He has a bunch of rings. What does he do with them? He puts them around people. That sounds a bit annoying. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Talk about a one-trick pony. But hey, it stood the test of time. The Ringer is still popping up every now and then in Marvel Comics. I'm not saying they're good stories or memorable or anything, but he's still there. And if you're getting an action figure purely from longevity alone, then there's an argument to be made that the Ringer deserves one too. Misery. As the CEO of Alchemax and widow of Harry Osborn, Liz Allen becomes Misery after bonding with a unique hybrid symbiote created from genetic material from both Carnage and Anti-Venom. Created by Alchemax scientists who attempted to weaponize symbiote strains, Liz was exposed to the hybrid during an attack on her lab by the Life Foundation. She possesses the combined abilities of her parent symbiotes, including superhuman strength, speed, and organic weapon formation. Uniquely, the conflicting nature of Carnage and Anti-Venom within her creates a hyper-potent healing factor as they constantly try to destroy one another. Liz operates as a protective mother and corporate leader, often using the Misery persona to safeguard her son, Normie Osborn, from the chaos of the Venom War and other symbiote threats. You know, I thought I was done with all the different symbiotes, because I said to myself, I don't want to go too deep. And then here we are with Misery. But it's Liz Allen. Liz Allen, an old school Spider-Man character. Of course, we were never going to get her in her civilian form. I mean, heck, we haven't even got a civilian Flash Thompson. But Liz Allen as Misery? Yeah, I'll take that. Also, as far as symbiote designs go, it's a little bit more unique. She got a little bit more stuff going on there. It's kind of like the generic base, but then with some nice sprinkles and toppings, bit of caramel sauce, some hundreds and thousands, enough to make her recognizable as, oh, that's Misery, as opposed to, that's just a random symbiote character. And she's super modern too, so I like the fact that I can mix up some of these requests. It's not just super old school, obscure 90s characters. We've got a contemporary one as well. And the Misery design, pretty badass. Plus, it's a symbiote, so of course it's going to sell. Anastasia, Anna Kravenov, is a Marvel comic character who first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 565 from 2008, created by writer Mark Guggenheim and artist Phil Jimenez. She is the daughter of Sergei Kravenov, the original Kraven the Hunter, and Sasha Kravenov, raised from a young age to be a ruthless, remorseless hunter. Raised in the family tradition, Anna was taught by elite tutors to believe in her aristocratic superiority and to master various forms of combat. At roughly 12 years old, Anna began her criminal career, seeking to avenge her father's death by targeting Spider-Man. I mentioned earlier about the rather dysfunctional Kravinoff family. Well, Anna Kravinoff, Kraven's favorite
child. I would have thought maybe. Actually, that might not be true because he's got the other son who actually becomes Kraven. Like the Kraven in the comics now, that's not classic Kraven. He's brown bread. The Kraven that we have now, who looks identical, is actually his son. There you go. Filled you in on some Spider-Man Kraven family knowledge in case you didn't know. But Anna Kravinoff, so the sister of the current Kraven, she's great. I really like the design of this character, the cool, pixie, punky, blonde hairstyle, and the fact that she is absolutely bonkers. I was thinking, what word can I use? I didn't want to use a word that was like offensive, but I was like, what word can I use for someone who's completely off their rocker? Bonkers. There you go. That'll do it. She's a crazy hunting fool, just like her father was, and a real fun character. So yeah, let's build out the Kraven legacy. She'll be an essential part. Joystick. She is a superhuman mercenary and a former member of both the Masters of Evil and the Thunderbolts, first appearing in Amazing Scarlet Spider 2 from 1995. Joystick first appeared as a player in The Great Game, a high-stakes competition where wealthy sponsors bet on superhuman combatants. Driven by an addiction to adrenaline and extreme risks, she lives for the rush of combat rather than any specific moral or political cause. During her time with the Thunderbolts, it was revealed that she was a double agent, secretly working for the Grand Master, who further augmented her powers. You know, I thought that I was done with the 90s Clone Saga characters, but Joystick! That would be one that I'd love to see. Also, joystick, I almost feel like that's becoming a forgotten term. Like the kids these days, they wouldn't know what a joystick is. It's all controllers and gamepads and mouses. We used to play on a joystick back in the 80s and 90s. Because, yeah, you don't use joysticks in, like, cockpits, do you? What do you call the cockpit thing? You don't call it a joystick. You don't fly into Afghanistan with a joystick. What do you call it, a flight stick? I don't know. Anyway, joystick, then the word will survive because the character will survive if she gets a Marvel Legend. If not Hasbro, then the term joystick might be lost forever. Do you want that on your conscience? I wouldn't have thought so. Virus. Matt Gargan debuted as Virus in Venom 26 from 2020, blaming Eddie Brock for ruining his life and leaving him paraplegic after the Absolute Carnage event. Gargan used his remaining resources to build a specialized suit of armor. The suit was jury-rigged from an old War Machine Mark III chassis and equipped with a mix of stolen tech from the Tinkerer, including vibro-shock gauntlets, a Goblin glider, and pumpkin bombs. Specifically designed to hunt symbiotes, the armor featured sonic emitters and energy cannons capable of breaching high-level fortifications. Gargan's stint as Virus was relatively short-lived. He eventually lost the armor and was rebonded to a symbiote by the villain Codex, returning to his identity as the Scorpion. You know, when I was making this list, I didn't think I was going to have this many Goblin characters, but here we are. And even though Virus isn't technically a Goblin character, I'm sorry, you have someone flying around on a Goblin glider, you're gonna get lumped in with the Goblins. But hey, what an awesome mashup this is. You've got an Iron Man War Machine style costume, but then with the glider as well. Tell you what, Matt Gargan might not have thought it at the time, but you know, losing the use of his legs, well, it led to a pretty awesome looking costume. Didn't survive for very long, but I love this cobbled together kind of look. Like it looks really gnarly and a little bit unsettling because your brain is seeing things that it's familiar with, but they're not in the form you should recognize them. I love like the painted on details on the mask, like a War Machine mask, but with painted on symbiote fangs and stuff. It looks cool. And it looks like a crazy person put it together. And that's wicked. So having a figure of this, yeah, 1,000,000% would absolutely love it. The Jury, a team of armored vigilantes created by Orwell Taylor specifically to seek vengeance against Venom for the death of his son, Hugh Taylor.
Hugh Taylor was a guard at the Vault who was murdered by Venom during a prison break in Amazing Spider-Man 315. Devastated by the death of his son, General Orwell Taylor recruited former guardsmen and other individuals to hunt down Venom. The team was outfitted with high-tech power armor designed to counter Venom's symbiote abilities and operated out of a base in San Francisco, often utilizing a flying ship called the Justifier.
There are few things that scream 90s to me more than the Jury. This was just the time when I started super getting into comics. And that was when Venom was getting a huge big push. Spider-Man was just having his wicked 90s adventures. And the Jury were a big part of that. And it's such a swing and a miss from Hasbro that we have a Vault Guardsman, which is pretty much the template for all the other Jury members. Basing the fact that, they are all based on a Vault Guardsman, that you've got it. You've got the starting blocks right there, Hasbro. All you got to do is throw some extra bits and pieces on this figure. And also, please change his feet. Because for whatever reason, I don't know about you guys who have Vault Guardsman figures, but they do not stand up. It's almost like their feet are curved on the inside or something. Like they're like a Weeble, except they wobble and they fall down. But that notwithstanding, if we could build the Jury, that would be really fun. Each one has a slightly distinct kind of look, but not so distinct that you couldn't actually just give us a couple of different figures with a few swap out parts and boom, you could put them together yourself. And if you did, I, for one, would be very happy.
The Inheritors, a family of multiversal energy vampire villains from Earth-001, introduced in Marvel's 2014 Spider-Verse event. Led by Solace, they hunt animal totems, primarily spider totems, across the multiverse, feeding on them to gain immortality. They are powerful beings who use the Master Weaver to travel dimensions. The members are Solace, the patriarch and king of the Inheritors, a dominant force; Morlun, one of the more famous Inheritors, a primary foe of Spider-Man. Then there's Verna, Deimos, Genix, Brix, Bora, and sometimes Khan, who was exiled. They possess superhuman strength, speed, durability, and the ability to drain life forces instantly.
All right, for the Inheritors, well, this is going to help me pad out the numbers if I need them to. We got a whole bunch of Inheritors. There's about 6 or 7 of them. But now that we've got Morlun, like the main big bad, it would be kind of fun to build out the rest of his family. Especially, I think it's Solace is the name of the big dad of the group. That would be a really, really cool one to have. But also there's the Web Weaver one. That's the main one. I know, it's terrible. I'm embarrassing myself with my lack of name knowledge. But hey, I can barely remember the names of my friends and co-workers. So you'll have to forgive me if I can't get all the Inheritors. But the guy who has like the diving type mask and the actual mechanical spider body that he kind of rides in, I suppose. A real fun design. That would be great. I know that, man, the more I think about the Inheritors, they are all pretty cool, actually. Like, you got the twins there as well. They're all rocking that sort of Hellfire type, old school Victorian sort of aristocrat kind of look. Yeah, each and every one of the Inheritors would be a wicked box set. The more I think about it, that would be really, really fun to have. But if I was just going to get one, maybe a big bad Solace. That would be awesome. Or the Web Weaver one. I kind of like him too. The Circus of Crime, a long-running ensemble of criminal performers in Marvel Comics, originated from a traveling European troupe that turned to villainy following the death of its original ringmaster during World War II. When the circus failed to succeed on its own merits, Maynard decided to turn to crime, utilizing a hypnotism wave generator concealed in his top hat, a device previously created by the Red Skull. Many original performers quit, but some stayed, becoming the core of the Circus of Crime. The Circus of Crime. How have we not had any of these guys made in action figure form yet? I mean, actually, the answer to that is easy. They probably wouldn't sell that great to the masses, but I don't care about the masses. I'm sorry. I know that sounds mean. But I don't. I care about what I want. And what I want might possibly coincide with what a few of you fellas want as well, which is some classic OG goofy characters. And the Circus of Crime absolutely fits that bill. And the fact is, there's such great kind of variety in the looks of these characters, in how bright and ridiculous and over the top they are. Plus, it's not like they haven't featured that much in modern comics, even though they are a silly, wacky, crazy 1960s kind of idea. They've actually withstood the test of time, sometimes being upgraded in kind of edgy, gritty kind of ways to be like, oh yeah, this is the wacky Circus of Crime, but what if they were super messed up? Well, you know what? That's fine. It fits for modern comics, but for me, I want a bit of 1960s wackiness. So a completely bonkers old school version of the Circus of Crime, yeah, I would love to bring those and put them into my classic Spider-Man collection. That would look amazing. And that does it for another absolutely massive Top 100 Most Wanted video. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It probably took a few sittings to get to this point, but I hope you enjoyed the ride. I certainly had a blast making this. I can feel my voice starting to go now. So I'm going to have a nice little sip of lemon tea and let this thing rest for a while, which I think it needs to do. But before I go, what did you think about the list? Who was missing and who do you most want to see? And if you enjoyed this, a thumbs up would be hugely appreciated. Thank you everyone who watched this far, and thank you all the channel members who make these videos possible. You guys are my real most wanted. So thank you for watching, and until next time, keep displaying model behavior.